Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. Just moments ago, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt responded to the funding freeze on Harvard University and replied to reporters' questions on the Trump administration's deportation efforts of illegal immigrants. China reportedly ordering its airlines not to take any further deliveries of Boeing jets. This comes in response to the 145% tariffs on Chinese goods placed by the U.S. It's tax day today. Have you still not filed? Well, we'll have tips on how to get an extension and more. Federal funding to Harvard has been frozen after the university refused to comply with the Trump administration's policies. What's likely to happen next? We'll be asking our news contributor. And the EU and China have reopened talks about the sale of Chinese EVs in Europe. This raises concerns among some economists who fear a dump of Chinese products onto the continent.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
All right, if you still haven't finished your taxes for 2024, the clock is ticking. It's April 15th, otherwise known as Tax Day, the deadline to get federal income tax returns sent to the Internal Revenue Service. Now, while a majority of U.S. taxpayers have already taken care of matters with the tax man, roughly 101 million have still yet to do so. There are some exceptions here. Businesses and residents in 7 disaster-stricken states have been given extensions. Taxpayers are advised to file electronically if possible. Now, the Taxpayer Advocate Service says that's usually safer and faster than dropping it off in the mail. China has reportedly ordered its airlines not to take further deliveries of Boeing jets. The move is the latest response by Beijing to U.S. tariffs of 145% on Chinese goods. Shares of Boeing fell today after Bloomberg reported the news. Shares were down 1% by midday, but China is not a big customer of Boeing, with the company only receiving orders for 28 planes in the last 6 years. These were mostly for freighters or were orders from Chinese leasing companies. Not a single order for a passenger jet was from a Chinese airline. The Trump administration has frozen more than $2 billion in funding for Harvard University over its refusal to implement policy changes. Harvard accuses the administration of trying to curtail academic freedom, and here's more on that story.
The federal government announced Monday it was freezing $2.2 billion in grants and $60 million in contracts to Harvard University. This comes after the Ivy League school said it would reject the government's demands for policy changes. Harvard's president Alan Garber wrote Monday the university will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights. The Department of Education's task force to combat anti-Semitism then released a statement announcing the funding freeze. The task force said Harvard's refusal to comply shows a mindset, quote, that federal investment does not come with the responsibility to uphold civil rights laws. Some of the demands the government made to Harvard and several other prestigious schools include eliminating DEI programs, banning masks at campus protests, and limiting the power held by some faculty members. It also mandates that admissions and hiring processes prioritize merit over race and gender-based criteria. In a letter last week, the Trump administration told Harvard to screen out international applicants deemed, quote, hostile to American values or supportive of terrorism. It also demanded an audit of programs at the school's Center for Middle Eastern Studies to root out any faculty who, quote, discriminated against Jewish or Israeli students or incited students to violate Harvard's rules. Garber's response was that no government should dictate what private universities can teach, who they can admit or hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue. He said Harvard already made extensive reforms to address anti-Semitism. As early as Friday, the Harvard chapter of the American Association of University Professors filed a lawsuit to block the government from cutting funding, saying a freeze was imminent. Last month, Columbia University received a similar list of demands with nearly $5 billion in funding on the line. Unlike Harvard, it agreed to nearly every demand, though the funds remain frozen at this time.
In a Truth Social post today, Trump wrote that Harvard could lose its tax-exempt status and be taxed as a political entity. He said that's if the school keeps pushing what he called political, ideological, and terrorist-inspired content. And just moments ago, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt held a press briefing. Leavitt responded to questions from reporters about the Trump administration's freeze of those $2.2 billion in grants to Harvard. Here's what she had to say.
I'm curious with Harvard, we saw the Trump administration today announced it's cutting around $2 billion, or freezing $2 billion in funds to Harvard because the campus has serious problems with violence and with anti-Semitism. We saw President Obama, former President Obama, side with Harvard, which rejected the Trump administration's demands. I'm curious, where does the administration see this going with Harvard and with other colleges and universities in America that are refusing to reform in wake of the sort of craziness that we've seen take over some of them?
Thank you, Matt, for being here, and thanks for the question. When it comes to Harvard, the president's position on this is grounded in common sense, in the basic principle that Jewish American students, or students of any faith, should not be illegally harassed and targeted on our nation's college campuses. And we unfortunately saw that illegal discrimination take place on the campus of Harvard. There are countless examples to prove it, particularly with the stunning confession by then Harvard President Claudine Gay, who said that bullying and harassment depended on the context. The president at that time made it clear to the American public he was not going to tolerate illegal harassment and anti-Semitism taking place in violations of federal law. So the president made it clear to Harvard, follow federal law, no longer break Title VI, which was passed by Congress to ensure no student can be discriminated against on the basis of race, and you will receive federal funding. Unfortunately, Harvard has not taken the president or the administration's demands seriously. All the president is asking, don't break federal law, and then you can have your federal funding. I think the president is also begging a good question. More than $2 billion out the door to Harvard when they have a more than $50 billion endowment. Why are the American taxpayers subsidizing a university that has billions of dollars in the bank already? And we certainly should not be funding a place where such grave anti-Semitism exists.
To follow up on something that you just said, why do Ivy League schools get so much federal funding?
It's a very good question, and it's a question the president has obviously raised in his discussions and negotiations with not just Harvard, but also Columbia and many other Ivy League institutions. We have the Anti-Semitism Task Force, which the president promised and delivered on. The Anti-Semitism Task Forces across the government, representatives from various federal agencies who meet on a weekly basis to discuss the question that you just raised. And I think a lot of Americans are wondering why their tax dollars are going to these universities when they are not only indoctrinating our nation's students, but also allowing such egregious illegal behavior to occur.
All right, let's stay on this topic. Joining us now is Mike Leon, our NTD News contributor and host of the podcast, Can We Please Talk? Mike, good to see you. Tell us, how much does this type of freezing of funding actually hurt these schools? Because they're still getting millions, if not billions, from donations.
Good to see you, Fiona, as always. Yeah, no, I was going to say, Harvard's endowment, if anybody wants to look it up, it's well into the billions. And obviously, this is going to hurt them with respect to, and, Caroline Levitt and Peter Doocy, they're the White House reporter for Fox News. I was asking that question. I know that voice anywhere, having worked at Fox News. He's asking that question, and it is a good question. Why do these schools get so much federal funding? It's because of research programs, right? These universities, and I just take my school, for example, Rutgers University in New Jersey, a public funded school, public state school that does get federal funds. And it's a lot for research programs, right? This goes to some of the medical programs at Harvard. Some of these research and studies and some of the things that come out of these studies impact society more broadly. So if everyone wants the answer as to why that much money, it's because of a lot of these research programs. This is going to hurt Harvard with respect to that. They're going to have to figure out how to make up that number, because anybody that loses 2.2 billion, Fiona, on something is going to have to make it up, right? That's a large amount of money that's allocated to their budget for this. But could the budget be a little bit smaller for them? Yes. And then we can obviously get into why Harvard decided to reject this funding overall. But that's part of the reason why these schools do get this money. It's a lot of it goes to the research programs at these institutions for graduate programs, et cetera.
And to your point of why Harvard says that it won't accept the administration's policy change request, here's a quote from Harvard's president. And the president says, quote, "The administration's prescription goes beyond the power of the federal government. It violates Harvard's First Amendment rights and exceeds the statutory limits of the government's authority under Title VI." Break that argument down for us, Mike.
Yeah, so look, here's the baseline premise for everybody. Last year, college campus protest. Harvard was amongst that, a bunch of these other universities. President Trump, and if you recall on Capitol Hill, Lee Stefanik, they called a lot of these university presidents to testify, to talk about all these campus protests, a lot of it rooted in anti-Semitism, but obviously protesting Israel's response to the war in Gaza. Donald Trump campaigned on this. Now he's back in office. They've put this task force together. This task force is going about it a different way completely than what, let's say, the Biden administration or another Democratic administration would do. The argument that Harvard is making, because of the note that they got from the Trump administration, is you need to change in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion with the executive order that the president signed with respect to whether it be hiring practices, student selection, the impact that faculty members have with respect to voicing their opinion. And the administration, this is where it's going to fight in court. And what the Harvard president there, or the statement said there from Harvard, is really about impacting free speech, right? So if I want to protest on Harvard's campus with respect to Israel's response, proportional or not, to the war in Gaza, according to the Trump administration, some of that is rooted in anti-Semitism. That's what the administration is arguing. They want, if federal funds that are attached from the government, if you want this funds, simply put, you have to change some of your policy and standards. Harvard doesn't want to do it. They says it violates not only the First Amendment, but I'm sure they're going to make other legal compelling arguments in the court of law. And so they have said that they're not going to comply with this. Columbia, if you remember, Fiona, complied with some of this with respect to what the Trump administration wanted to do. And their funding is still on hold as of now. So this is one of those things where Harvard was kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. If they comply with it, they could still be subject to what happened to Columbia. If they don't comply with it, they could lose the federal funding altogether and the $2.2 billion that was coming their way.
Hey, well, Mike, let me ask you this, because some critics of what the Trump administration is doing, they're saying, Harvard, these schools, they're private institutions. They can do what they want. The government can't have a say in this. But when we see the destruction of private property during these university protests last year, as well as these allegations of harassment against Jewish students, Mike, is there ever a moment where the federal government can say that, hey, a line has been crossed and we get to step in now?
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing, Fiona, right? Like, what line has been crossed? And I don't mean that like broadly as like a generic question throwing out to society. It's like, I agree, anti-Semitism, wrong. But do we have the same issue with people that are fighting for Palestinian rights and freedom? That's the difference, right? I was arguing about this with a friend of mine, a Trump supporter who voted for Trump, a Republican based in Michigan, where there's been some campus protests recently out there in Michigan, Michigan State, respectively. And the argument comes about of like, well, look at what happened with the Columbia student versus the Rumeysa Uzturk case in Tufts University in Boston, right? One wrote an op-ed. The other one has actually shown signs, at least proven so far in different court documents and what's been alleged by the Trump administration, to support Hamas, right? And so where does the line kind of dance here? Do we just restrict all speech on campus protests? And I think your line, Fiona, of what you were talking about there is really about campus police, state involvement versus federal involvement, right? With respect to what happened on campus protests last year. There's no question that these presidents, when they were called to testify last year on Congress, answered some of these questions terribly wrong in either direction, right? They just weren't focused on safety versus free speech versus the letter of the law in terms of what these students could do. So I think the Trump administration has decided, and again, we can argue about whether or not this approach is right, but you want federal funding, these are some of the things that you have to do, because last year we saw a lot of campus protests and we saw, like you said, destruction of property, and we saw that these colleges couldn't get their house in order. The Trump administration, right or wrong, has decided that they're going to attach federal funding to make sure that these universities become a place of higher learning and that there isn't any disruption like this. But again, are we doing it consistently for all students of all walks of life? That is my issue with respect to all of this, Fiona.
I want to come back, Mike, for a moment to the specific funding for Harvard, because now that Harvard has said that it won't get this funding because it won't change its policy as per the Trump administration's wants, you're saying that this will impact specifically its research funding. So what happens next year? What is Harvard going to have to do to try to fill that gap? And what could we see from the administration if they want to pressure Harvard further?
Well, I mean, let's start backwards because I don't think there's anything left for the administration to do. They've already pressured them. They sent this letter. The next step is to cut funding. This is part of the broader look at where we're spending taxpayer dollars. And some of it is allocated, obviously, as just mentioned before, in that back and forth with Caroline Levitt and Peter Doocy, to research institutions, right? Like a Harvard. So I think the administration's pretty much done. Comply with this, or we just pull it. And I don't think there is a negotiating lever within that, even though we know Donald Trump and the Trump administration more broadly likes to cut deals based on the president's philosophy. I don't think there's anything left for them to do. On the flip side, with respect to Harvard, there was something recently on Harvard's website they put forward in terms of like messaging about research and what it is that this money actually goes for. So that way there's more public messaging on that. How do they make up the money? I got to be honest. I don't know. Could it be more donations? Could it be something else that they look to in terms of what they could do at a state level? Obviously, we know Massachusetts is a Democrat-led state. So I'm sure they're already meeting with state officials to try to figure out what it is that they can do with respect to that. But like I said, this is a private institution. It has a really large endowment. I'm sure they can tap into other resources with respect to trying to make up some of this funding, but they're going to get hit no matter what with respect to impact. And there's going to be cuts, whether it be to staff, whether that be to research programs overall, whether that be to some of the grad students enrollment and stuff like that. Like I mentioned, class cancellations. There's a trickle effect of losing $2.2 billion, right, Fiona? And I think the institution right now, given the stance, I'm sure there'll be a suit that follows, as there was recently one that came out with the Teachers Association with respect to the Trump administration and this recent, position towards Harvard University. So I'm sure we'll see some suits happen in court, which we already have seen. But I think they've already started talking internally about how they make up this money. But from the administration's perspective, this was it. It was either do this or don't do it, and the funding's pulled.
All right, Mike, before we go here, since you say, that's the end of it, if the funding's pulled, that's kind of where it ends, then could we see the administration also working backwards and going, hey, if cutting funding's not going to work, let's just start rescinding more visas or making the entire visa application process tougher?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought this part up because down here in Miami where I'm at, FIU just recently revoked 18 student visas down here. And that affected obviously some campus protests that have happened. Speaking of campus protests down here. And so this is something that universities are going to have to deal with right now, right? Again, right or wrong, Trump administration very, very publicly has stated their position about this. And if you're a research institution and you get public funds from the federal government, you're probably thinking internally about what it is we're going to do if we get a similar letter like Harvard got. What are we going to do about, the funding that we could potentially lose on this? Do we, and I hate using the word comply because of the connotation, but do we comply with this, or do we, like Columbia did, kind of figure out where we can actually, make headwinds with the administration and work with them and then not compromise on certain things that are, critical, let's say First Amendment and free speech, because college students, we've all, attended college, at least I have here in America, like the right to protest something on a college campus, you should feel secure with respect to your First Amendment and free speech rights, given the university's code of conduct with respect to, conducting a protest. So I think everyone's starting to think about this now, Fiona, in terms of, I'm sure there are tons of, and I've spoken with a couple university presidents, including at my own alma mater, one Jonathan Holloway, who's leaving. And we've talked about this, like what do you do when a new administration comes in and there is federal funding tied to this? How do you make up things like that? Everyone's scrambling right now to try to figure out. Harvard is one of our most known universities in this country. What are they going to do about this? Okay, we have a little bit of finality in terms of that. They said no. They've also joined this suit. The administration is going to pull back funding. What does this mean? Where do they pivot? I think a lot of people are going to be taking notes on this example and figuring out, especially if they get federal funding, they're going to be trying to figure out how do we make up those dollars going forward with this new administration.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to see how different universities are reacting. Mike, Leon, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Fiona.
Coming up next, Advanced Micro Devices will soon make chips at a TSMC production site in Arizona, marking the first time its products will be manufactured here in the U.S. We'll have that story and more after the break.
Imagine a coffee that cares for your health. Expertly fermented with a 50 enzyme complex to enhance flavor and remove bitterness. Small batch roasted to a decadent medium dark, resulting in a brew that is gentle on digestion, low acid, and up to 90% less caffeine than regular coffee. Try America's first enzyme fermented coffee today.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one get one free offer goes away.
Welcome back to Newsroom. The Trump administration is examining the national security implications of importing semiconductors and pharmaceutical products. The Commerce Department said the probes were initiated under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act. Now, that legislation allows the president to impose tariffs on imports considered to be a threat to national security. According to the department, these include semiconductors, legacy chips, leading-edge chips, and microelectronics. Another probe will look at pharmaceutical imports and their ingredients. The department will also assess the economic impact of, quote, unfair trade practices and state-sponsored overproduction. The announcement follows President Trump's move to exempt smartphones, computers, servers, laptops, tablets, and other electronics from reciprocal tariffs. The CEO of Advanced Micro Devices said today that they're ready to start chip production at a Taiwanese chipmaker's plant in Arizona. The CEO, Lisa Su, said that they'll make more AI servers here in the U.S. Speaking at a news conference in Taiwan, Su acknowledged the dynamic situation in the overall supply chain, but she also added AMD is lucky to have broad and deep partnerships to help counter any issues.
When you think about the importance of the supply chain, we need to have a supply chain in all places. So certainly Taiwan is very important to us from a supply chain. And also in the United States, we just completed our acquisition of ZT Systems, which is a leading supply chain AI server capability in the United States. So yes, we are also expanding our U.S. capability.
AMD, one of the largest providers of personal computer chips, relies mostly on TSMC, which is the world's largest contract chip maker in Taiwan, to make its chips. President Trump said on Sunday that he would be announcing the tariff rate on imported semiconductors this week. He said there would be flexibility with some companies in the sector. Meanwhile, Johnson & Johnson expects about $400 million in tariff-related costs this year. The healthcare giant's chief financial officer told analysts that import duties against China and retaliatory tariffs will have the biggest impact here. CFO Joseph Wolk told the company's medical technology unit would be hit the hardest. Johnson & Johnson's estimate also includes the impact from tariffs on aluminum and steel. The company's outlook factored in import duties against key U.S. trading partners Canada and Mexico as well. Now, J&J added that contractual agreements limit its leverage on price increases that could soften the blow. The company is investing more than $55 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years. The funding will go toward domestic manufacturing of advanced medicines. And Europe could impose retaliatory tariffs on hundreds of American goods. That's if trade negotiations with the United States are not successful. The list of more than 400 products subject to additional duties of 25% was published just yesterday. It includes American toilet paper, eye makeup, cigars and tobacco, and men's and women's clothing. The EU measures were to begin today in response to a 25% U.S. tariff on all imports of steel and aluminum. However, the bloc of 27 countries suspended its countermeasures until July 14th after the U.S. delayed its reciprocal tariffs by 90 days. A man is facing a federal charge after allegedly threatening to kill Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard and her husband. The Justice Department now released some of the threatening texts the suspect allegedly sent. Ali Akbar Muhammad Amin of the state of Georgia was charged with transmitting interstate threats. The Justice Department released a statement with the charges yesterday. The statement shows that the suspect sent texts claiming that Gabbard is, quote, living on borrowed time. He allegedly also said that Gabbard and her family are going to die soon. The statement also includes that the suspect said things such as death to America and that America will burn. Gabbard thanked the FBI when the arrest was first announced on Friday. She called the suspect a radicalized and dangerous criminal. Indiana Governor Mike Braun spoke in Indianapolis today to propose sweeping changes to the state's food assistance program. Braun was joined by Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Head of Medicare and Medicaid Services, Mehmet Oz.
More SNAP money is spent on sugar drinks and candy than on fruits and vegetables. That changes today. Today's 9 executive orders reflect a new approach to health policy in the state of Indiana, focused on empowering everyone to live a healthier, happier, longer life, and today is where we begin.
If we're spending twice as much as any other country, not getting the life expectancy benefits that we anticipate, and 30 years ago, we were about equal to Europe. Now we're about 5 years behind Europe. We're going in the wrong direction. We're not getting value for the money we're putting into it. Why? Chronic illness. It drives 70% of the total healthcare budget. And the kinds of things that are in these executive orders will help reduce that incidence of chronic disease, because it turns out that about the most patriotic thing you can do these days is to get healthy.
We can't be a strong nation if we're not a strong people. It is threatening our national security. 74% of our kids cannot qualify for military service. And it's destroying our economy and our national vigor. We're spending when my uncle was president, we spent 0 on chronic disease, 0 in this country. They were spending about $1.3 trillion a year, and we can't afford it.
Arkansas and Indiana have moved to ban soft drinks and candy from food assistance programs, commonly known as food stamps. The 2 states are among several taking steps to restrict the purchase of certain foods that may contribute to poor health. The restrictions continue to be a key goal for Kennedy's Make America Healthy Again agenda. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg took the stand today for another round of questioning about his role in operating the company's alleged illegal monopoly. Our legal correspondent Arlene Richards has the details.
Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg was back in a Washington courtroom on Tuesday for a historic antitrust trial against his company. The results of the trial could force the company to break off Instagram and WhatsApp. The Federal Trade Commission filed the case under the first Trump administration. They're alleging that Meta operates an illegal monopoly. More specifically, the government is accusing the company of buying Instagram and WhatsApp, two social media powerhouses, to squash the competition and eliminate rivals. Meta counters that it still has rivals such as YouTube and TikTok. On day one, the government pointed to emails in which Zuckerberg proposed buying Instagram to neutralize a Facebook competitor, and expressed concern that WhatsApp could grow into a social network. The company said in a statement that it's been more than a year since the FTC reviewed and cleared its acquisitions. They contend the competitive landscape has shifted dramatically since then, and that the government will have to show the company holds a monopoly in the current market. Some experts have said it will be an uphill battle for the FTC to prove its case. They say the market has evolved significantly since Meta acquired Instagram and WhatsApp. The case is part of a crackdown on big tech that started during the first Trump administration. Amazon, Apple, and Alphabet's Google also face similar lawsuits by U.S. antitrust enforcers. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Up next, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt highlighted the administration's efforts to deport illegal immigrants during today's press conference. We'll have our Sam Wong on the street to ask about people's reactions to President Trump's effect to deport illegal immigrants. That and more after this break.
As we naturally age, many people are getting zero amount of this incredible and unique substance. That's when we start seeing an impact in our joints, skin, nails, and even our digestion.
People ask me, Dr. X, what is the #1 supplement I should be taking? My answer is multi-collagen protein.
People's reactions to me, people were like, what are you doing? What is going on? You look amazing. You have a glow about you.
What makes Ancient Nutrition Multi-Collagen stand out from other brands? 10 types of collagen. It's grass-fed, pasture-raised with vitamin C and probiotics. It's proven to reduce joint discomfort rapidly, continuously, and persistently. It improves the appearance of crow's feet after 4 weeks and improves skin tone after 8 weeks. And it promotes hair thickness, growth, and a reduction in hair breakage.
It has transformed everything from my hair. Like, my hair was starting to kind of just, come out, and I don't have that anymore. My skin feels amazing.
Call the number on your screen and find out how to get a free bottle when you order, plus free shipping and our 30-day money-back guarantee. And as a bonus, we will include Dr. Josh Axe and Jordan Rubin's revolutionary book, Multi-Collagen Makeover, free with your order, plus free shipping and free returns.
I have implicit trust in Dr. Axe because the plan worked. I'm living proof of it.
This is the collagen protein that is backed by clinical studies. It's what my family uses, it's what I use, and I know you're going to benefit in a big way as well.
Love the results or get your money back. This special TV offer is not available in stores. Call the number on your screen or go online now.
We said we'd never give in to a meltdown.
Okay.
And we'd never babysit with a screen. We said we'd never let the toys take over.
Mariella!
Never leave the house looking, well, and never let them out of our sight. Skylar, come here. Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Welcome back to Newsroom. Let's take a look now at the Middle East. Iran and the United States held talks in Oman on Saturday. More talks do seem to be on the horizon. This all as the conflict between Israel and Hamas continues in Gaza. Joining us now to discuss is David Wormser, Middle East Affairs Analyst for the Center for Security Policy. David, thank you so much for being here today. Let's start off with what Special Envoy Steve Witkoff had to say to Fox yesterday, because he said that these talks with Iran, they were about two things, really: verification of uranium enrichment and then verification on weaponization. So from Witkoff, there didn't seem to be really a call for full denuclearization, but we have seen that that's what President Trump wants. He's been very clear on that. Why the difference here?
Well, I think there might have been some crossed signals, maybe confusion inside the administration. Certainly in the messaging, there was confusion. President Trump even mentioned at one point the Libya model. The Libya model is the full dismantling of the entire program by inspectors that come from the United States, not just from international organizations. It certainly strips them of enrichment. Enrichment is the key to a weaponized program. It's also part of a civilian program. You need to enrich uranium to a certain point to put it in nuclear reactors to have nuclear power. But you then use the same technology to enrich it to 90% where you have a full-up nuclear bomb. It's not allowed for most nations to have enrichment. All these nations signed on to what's called the Non-Proliferation Treaty, the NPT, and in it they give up the right to any of this enrichment activity, in exchange for which nations can sell them nuclear fuel. And Iran signed that and then cheated and got its way into nuclear enrichment. So to bring it back into compliance with the Non-Proliferation Treaty, it really has to give it up. And as you said, Ambassador Witkoff suggested they could keep a limited capacity. Problem is you can't limit it. I find it, though, interesting that this morning he issued another tweet, and in that tweet he walked back what he said last night. He said no weaponization and no enrichment. So I think the administration is getting its signal straight now. But there was a 12 to 24 hour confusion out there based on what Ambassador Witkoff had said.
Now, when we're looking at this ongoing denuclearization debate, I think it's also important to consider the very close relationship that Iran and China has. How is this ongoing trade war between the U.S. and China going to impact Iran in all of this?
Well, Iran and China have a lot of interactions. One is obviously the illegal oil trade. So the stronger we get and the more we impose sanctions on Iran and enforce them through the Proliferation Security Initiative or high seas interception of ships and so forth, the more it chokes off some of the cheap oil that China is getting. The tariffs themselves probably won't affect Iran that much, although what it could do is affect the import of some of the higher tech equipment into China, which is then being used and sent forward to Iran to build their drones and so forth. The other big area of cooperation between China and Iran is intelligence, global networks of intelligence. And that could be compromised as well because for the Chinese and the Iranians, because if we start having a major trade war and Chinese businessmen can't travel to the United States, the intelligence sharing structures begin to suffer for the Iranians. And that's a good thing. So overall, I don't see a big impact from the tariff war with China on Iran, but what impact there is generally negative for the Iranians.
And so you're saying that the pressure that the U.S. is exerting on China won't necessarily translate onto Iran here?
It won't translate directly because the Iranians trade with China. They won't be subjected to American tariffs. And we have a lot of sanctions on Iran. And we didn't level more sanctions on Iran or tariffs on Iran. So our trade with Iran really isn't that much. The only real trade we have, actually, ironically, is a bit of oil. So I don't really see it directly affecting Iran. But goods that China has that it requires American parts for now may be choked off. And if they're choked off, it means some of the tech transfer from China to Iran could be significant.
All right, David, let's take a look at the hostage situation, because we just saw the hostage, Idan Alexander, appearing in that propaganda video from Hamas just on Saturday. Where exactly do negotiation talks between Israel and Hamas stand right now?
The Israelis basically they offered, with the Egyptian approval, they offered Hamas an interim deal. The interim deal is that Israel will start talking seriously about the second phase of the ceasefire, which is a more permanent structure. But they want back 10 to 11 hostages, which would only leave about 11 to 12 still in captivity. They want 10 to 11 back, and they're willing to give Hamas a 45-day ceasefire in exchange for that, which is significant because the Hamas right now is running out of fuel, running out of electricity from generators, therefore, running out of water, running out of food. Finally, the stores, this vast oversupply of food and humanitarian goods that had been quite marked in the last half year to year is now being depleted. It's taken already over a month to start depleting it, but it's beginning to be depleted. So Hamas is really desperate, but Hamas doesn't want to surrender. So Hamas essentially rejected the Israeli plan, saying, no, the only plan they're going to agree to is if Israel commits to never starting the war again, and Hamas can keep its weapons and stay in power, and essentially prepare for the next round so it can start the war when it chooses to, and the Israelis can't preempt or whittle them down or anything like that. The Israelis aren't going to accept that. They're not going to accept the withdrawal from Gaza at this point either. So I think we're basically a lot of movement on pieces of this deal, but overall the deal is stuck.
Well then, David, we also heard Caroline Leavitt saying today that President Trump has said that getting Idan Alexander home is a top priority. Now, she couldn't confirm these reports that we've been hearing that Hamas has lost contact with the group holding Idan. Do you see U.S. involvement in the hostage negotiations increasing?
Yeah, because President Trump really does want that hostage back. He wants all the hostages back. It's really quite stunning how often the various hostage families or freed hostages are in the White House as guests. President Trump clearly has assumed this as a personal interest and a personal commitment to get these hostages out. It really does bother him, their captivity. He's quite upset. So I think he really is making an amazing effort to try to get them out. The problem is the Israelis and he think the only way to do it at this point is to turn up the pressure on Hamas more and more and more until they cry uncle, and then they start giving up. I hope that works, and that is what the Israelis are doing. They're taking more territory in Gaza precisely for that reason, although they're avoiding areas where they know the hostages are because they can't get them. They're underground, 100 yards underground, with lots of terrorists surrounding them, ready to kill them at the first sign of any rescue attempt. So the Israelis really can't rescue them effectively right now. So they're just avoiding those areas and instead trying to choke Hamas to death, essentially, until they cry uncle and give them up and agree to the terms that Israel's putting forward. Again, I'm not sure that Hamas is going to do that, but that's really the only option left for the United States and Israel.
Yep, very tense situation there. David Wormser, thank you for joining us today. All right, moving on now. President Donald Trump saying the ball is in China's court amid new escalations in trade tension. He's also set to sign an order today to stop illegal immigrants from getting Social Security benefits. And joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. Iris, what's the latest from the White House press briefing?
Good afternoon to you as well, Fiona. So today at the White House press briefing, the press secretary brought a message from President Trump on China, saying that the ball is now in China's court as, of course, the two sides are trading different tariffs. And we just know that China retaliated with 125% tariffs on U.S. goods after President Trump upped his tariffs on China to 145%. And here's President Trump's message on China today. Watch.
You have an additional statement that he just shared with me in the Oval Office. The ball is in China's court. China needs to make a deal with us. We don't have to make a deal with them. There's no difference between China and any other country except they are much larger. And China wants what we have, what every country wants, what we have, the American consumer. Or to put it another way, they need our money.
And while President Trump has repeatedly said that he's willing to talk to China's Xi Jinping, no official communications between the two leaders have been reported just yet. And meanwhile, this morning, President Trump further criticized China for being, quote, brutal to American farmers, adding that China reneged on a big Boeing deal. China has announced that it's asking its airlines to pause any further taking in of deliveries from Boeing, which is an American manufacturer, amid heightened trade tensions. And meanwhile, we might hear more from President Trump this afternoon as he is set to sign a presidential memorandum aimed at stopping illegal immigrants in the U.S. from getting Social Security benefits. Here's what the press secretary said about President Trump's willingness to protect the Social Security benefits for American taxpayers who have paid into the program. Watch.
He will always protect that program. He campaigned on it, he protected it in his first term, and he's back again to continue protecting it.
And also, the order today will also look into how to further prevent Social Security fraud. For example, by ordering attorneys across the country to look into people over the age of 100 who have mismatched Social Security records, as well as look into if there's any way to punish those people who committed fraud monetarily. Back to you.
Iris, the president of El Salvador was just with President Trump yesterday. What's the latest on deportations?
Right, so yesterday we heard from the El Salvadoran president that he's not going to return a Maryland man, or what the White House calls an illegal immigrant who's part of the MS-13 gang, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, from El Salvador, his home country, back to the U.S. And today the White House press secretary criticized the media for what she calls sensational reporting, as well as highlighted a case of a U.S. mom of 5 who was murdered by an illegal immigrant back in 2023. Watch.
Fortunately, many in this country care more about this quote-unquote Maryland father, a legal alien MS-13 gang member, than a Maryland mother and an American citizen who was brutally murdered at the hands of a different illegal alien. She was a 37-year-old mother of 5 who was jogging in an otherwise safe community northeast of Baltimore when this monster ambushed, strangled, and beat her to death before stuffing her brutalized body in a tunnel drain.
And the press secretary also told us that the president is looking into laws to see if we can deport American citizens who have committed very heinous crimes to Central American prisons. Back to you.
Iris Tao, thank you. And moving on, a federal judge has temporarily blocked deportations in Colorado under President Trump's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act. The American Civil Liberties Union requested last night's emergency order on behalf of 2 Venezuelan migrants. Trump argued that the Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua, is invading the United States. Therefore, its members should be subject to removal under the 18th century legislation. The ACLU, meanwhile, says the Venezuelan nationals being held in Denver fear being falsely accused of belonging to that group. The Supreme Court ruled last week that individuals being deported under the declaration are entitled to a hearing. District Judge Charlotte Sweeney's order is in effect for 14 days. And what do Americans think of President Trump's efforts to send alleged illegal immigrant gang members to an El Salvador prison? NTD's Sam Wong was out on the National Mall in D.C. to hear from them.
Well, I think if they have direct ties to those organizations or those criminal organizations, then yeah, they should go back.
Should they send them back to their own countries? Maybe not like a prison where they could be in danger, and it's just not right.
Certainly if there are criminals
let's have some due process. Let's show that these people are criminals, and before we extricate them from the country.
For example, if you don't carry your papers with you everywhere you go, you snag me, I can't prove that I'm a citizen, and I'm deported to El Salvador before I can say boo.
Yeah, if they have a criminal history and it's, documented, they should not be here.
I don't care what country you're from. We all families came from other countries, but they came in the right way.
They don't even take care of our own people. And they come over here and they get hotels, money, all kinds of benefits, and our veterans are sleeping on the streets.
What do you guys make of all the legal pushbacks against the Trump administration's deportations efforts in the past week?
I don't have nothing against him. He's the one we voted for. Should not have some kind of judge that's in a small town saying, hey, you can't not do that, when he's supposed to be over all of them.
The federal judges are there to abide by the Constitution and the foundational purpose of the Constitution. I think it's a good thing.
Well, I think it sounds like a good thing. We've got to put it on pause. We've got to make sure that we're following the law.
Well, I think the Trump administration is correct in that if you're here, if you cross into the country illegally, then you've committed a crime to some degree. There should be some sort of repercussions for that.
It's not a judge's responsibility. He wasn't elected. President of the United States was. We elected him, not the jurisdiction of the courts at a lower level. If they want to run for president, get their names on the ballot, run like everybody else.
Coming up next, the EU and China have reopened talks about the sale of Chinese EVs in Europe. This raises concerns among some economists who fear a dump of Chinese products in the continent. We'll have that after this break.
I'm Ilka. I live with my daughter and with my grandchildren. There's a sense of comfort that comes with eating a good meal. We try to make the most, of what we have. We have rent to pay, and then there are lights and there are gas. And while my daughter and I both work, it still just doesn't seem like there's enough to go around sometimes.
Every day, millions of our neighbors face hunger, including 1 in 5 children, and food costs keep rising. Please call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Your monthly support can fill plates with nutritious food for families across the country and in your community, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks and volunteers.
If you were over and playing with us, you were part of our family and you were going to eat. A real cook can take nothing and make something.
No one should ever have to wonder if they will have enough to eat, and our neighbors are working hard to feed their families every day. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger from coast to coast and in your own community. Use your credit card and you'll get this exclusive canvas grocery bag as a thank you for joining hands with people across America to help end hunger.
Some of the lessons that I hope that my family will take, it is important to treat people the way that you want to be treated. I have carried on the tradition of loving people through food.
Please call right now or go online to make a monthly gift at helpfeedingamerica.org. Your support helps our neighbors bring food home to their families.
First time that when I see him, a lot of stuff came into my mind because I wasn't prepared at all. I know the first 3 months of his life were really important, and I wanted to be there all the time for him. First time he was like, "Daddy, Daddy." That was one of his first words. He grew up so quick. He just surprised me every day. He's really smart. I really think he can be an astronaut, president. But I'm gonna support him for wherever he wants to be. Whether he wanna be a photographer, musician, whatever. As a father, I guess you don't focus on you. I put himself first. That's what a dad does.
Welcome back. The U.S. and Iran are reportedly set to start the second round of nuclear talks this Saturday. The Islamic Republic says the second meeting will take place in Oman again. Iran's supreme leader made the announcement of the second talks today. He says Iran is neither overly optimistic nor pessimistic regarding the talks with the U.S. Western powers accuse Tehran of seeking nuclear weapons. Iran says its program is for civilian purposes only, but both sides describe the first talks in Oman as positive and have agreed to meet again on Saturday. This comes as the Houthis in Yemen say the U.S. attacked them late last night. 7 people reportedly died in the attack on the Iran-backed terrorist group. American officials have described the month-long campaign against the Houthis as a means to pressure Iran in the negotiations. Where Ukraine reportedly attacks Russia's Kursk region overnight, just one day after a deadly attack by Moscow. This as the U.S., NATO, and others keep working on a peace agreement. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar reports.
Sirens could be heard in Russia's Kursk region as Ukraine reportedly attacked with dozens of drones. Russian officials say the attack killed an elderly woman, injured 9 people, and ignited fires in several buildings. A spokesperson for Russia's investigative committee commented on Tuesday.
Ukrainian militants massively attacked residential buildings in the city of Kursk tonight. A drone also hit an ambulance station.
Meanwhile, in Ukraine, NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte is visiting the southern city of Odessa. While meeting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Rutte discussed the peace talks led by the U.S.
These discussions are not easy, not least in the wake of this horrific violence. But we all support President Trump's push for peace.
President Trump has been trying to implement a full ceasefire in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So far, the two sides only agreed to a limited truce on energy and infrastructure for 30 days. On Tuesday, Russia said there's no clear outline of a peace agreement yet.
But there's a political will to move towards this agreement. And I repeat once again, we highly appreciate the constructive and meaningful contacts we had with the U.S.
On Monday, Trump once again highlighted the need to stop the killing and bring an end to the conflict. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
And before we wrap up, footage of an unusual trespassing in Louisville, Kentucky. Local police released body cam footage of an officer escorting a deer out of a YMCA building. The video shows the officer entering the building and the deer standing in the lobby. The officer placed his hand on the deer and gently guided it out of the front door. Police say they're getting more and more reports of deer entering the city. This could be the result of storms and flooding over the last week. All right, coming up in the next hour, Attorney General Pam Bondi will soon be speaking about the latest development of 2 cases related to Mexican drug cartels and money laundering. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
What has lasted 5,000 years was once almost lost. Now, the world awaits the divine culture's return.
Being a cowboy, well, I don't know anything different. I had a very successful career. Life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally. And then I got hurt. I dug into mental health. I wanted to be better as a person. I start my day with a workout. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
Hi friends, Richard Karn here. Now I'm known as the guy who can fix just about anything, but the technology in most appliances requires very special training to fix. My point is, even I know when I've met my match, and that's why my family has Choice Home Warranty. So we won't get stuck with high-priced repairs.
Choice Home Warranty covers over 25 major home systems and appliances. That's your AC, heating, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and so much more.
Imagine for less than a cup of coffee a day, Choice Home Warranty can help protect you from expensive major system and appliance breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. but you have to call now before it's too late.
Every homeowner should have Choice Home Warranty. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your appliances.
Washing machine, dryer, refrigerator, air condition. If I had any issues arise, they were able to take care of it immediately.
Now, homeowners insurance won't protect you when your home's major systems and appliances break down due to normal wear and tear. But Choice Home Warranty will. They can help cover repairs and replacements.
Choice Home Warranty is the best warranty we've ever used. It would save you so much money in the long run.
Hey, I'm not the only one raving about Choice Home Warranty. They were named a Best Home Warranty Company and Best Claim Service by U.S. News 360 Reviews.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and get access to a nationwide network of over 15,000 technicians and the latest appointment setting technology so you'll know when they're on their way.
If I have an issue with an appliance or something around the house, I just call up Choice Home Warranty and I don't have to worry about that.
So, do what this old DIYer did and call Choice Home Warranty now before something breaks down. Tell them I sent you and get your first month free.
Call Choice Home Warranty before it's too late and get protection for your heating, AC, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and more. Call for your free quote today. Call in the next 5 minutes and get your first month free. 800-360-6782. 800-360-6782.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. The Department of Homeland Security says it's updating the status of 2 countries, resulting in thousands of immigrants losing their protection in the United States. And Attorney General Pam Bondi will soon speak about the latest development of 2 cases related to Mexican drug cartels and money laundering. 3 Democratic senators are stepping down at the end of their terms. NTD's Washington correspondent has the details. Johnson & Johnson projects hundreds of millions of tariff-related costs. The healthcare giant says its medical technology division will be hit the hardest. The EU and China have reopened talks about the sale of Chinese EVs into Europe. This raises concerns among some economists who fear a dump of Chinese products in the continent.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
The Department of Homeland Security says that it will revoke protection status for thousands of Afghans and Cameroonians. And joining us now from Washington, D.C. Live is Jason Blair with the story. Jason, what's the latest?
Hey, Fiona, yeah, that's right. So Secretary Kristi Noem from the DHS said that they will be changing the status of 2 countries, the temporary protection status, or TPS, for Afghanistan and Cameroon, which will affect approximately 14,600 Afghanistan immigrants starting in May and approximately 7,900 Cameroon immigrants starting in June. So Kristi Noem said that she determined that these 2 countries no longer meet the requirements to have TPS status, and this is following a report by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. So TPS allows individuals from certain countries that have been affected by armed conflict or natural disasters or things of that sort, temporary protection in the U.S. So in response to this, Global Refuge, a nonprofit agency that helps immigrants transfer into the U.S., did issue a statement against this decision. The president and CEO said, quote, Afghanistan today is still reeling from Taliban rule, economic collapse, and humanitarian disaster, forcing these people back to Taliban rule where they face systemic oppression and gender-based violence would be an utterly unconscionable stain on our nation's reputation. Back to you.
Jason, there's also been an update in a case involving the legal status of 530,000 immigrants in this parole program. What do you have on that?
Yeah, that's right. So yesterday on Monday, a federal judge did rule in that case saying that the DHS at this time cannot end that program, which, as you said, affects quite a lot, 530,000 approximately immigrants from countries like Cuba, Venezuela, Haiti, and Nicaragua. So the judge says that the government must look at all of these on a case-by-case basis at this time. And in the ruling, the judge said, quote, if their parole status is allowed to lapse, plaintiffs will be forced with 2 unfavorable options: continue following the law and leave the country on their own, or await removal proceedings. And then continues, if plaintiffs leave the country on their own, they will face dangers in their native countries as set forth in their affidavits. For some plaintiffs, leaving will also cause family separation. So back in March, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem made this decision that they are going to be trying to end this program. And this, as well as the TPS status change, is in part of the Trump administration's clamping down and securing the border and looking at all these immigration programs and reforming them, changing the ones that they say no longer align with national interests. Back to you.
All right, Jason Blair, thank you. Moving on now, China has reportedly ordered its airlines not to take further deliveries of Boeing jets. This move is the latest response by Beijing to U.S. tariffs of 145% on Chinese goods. Shares of Boeing fell today after Bloomberg reported the news. Shares were down 1% by midday. However, China is not a big customer of Boeing, with the company only receiving orders for 28 planes in the last 6 years. And those were mostly for freighters or were orders from Chinese leasing companies. Not a single order for a passenger jet was from a Chinese airline. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg took the stand today for another round of questioning about his role in operating the company's alleged illegal monopoly. Our legal correspondent Arlene Richards reports.
Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg was back in a Washington courtroom on Tuesday for a historic antitrust trial against his company. The results of the trial could force the company to break off Instagram and WhatsApp. The Federal Trade Commission filed the case under the first Trump administration. They're alleging that Meta operates an illegal monopoly. More specifically, the government is accusing the company of buying Instagram and WhatsApp, two social media powerhouses, to squash the competition and eliminate rivals. Meta counters that it still has rivals such as YouTube and TikTok. On day one, the government pointed to emails in which Zuckerberg proposed buying Instagram to neutralize a Facebook competitor, and expressed concern that WhatsApp could grow into a social network. The company said in a statement that it's been more than a year since the FTC reviewed and cleared its acquisitions. They contend the competitive landscape has shifted dramatically since then, and that the government will have to show the company holds a monopoly in the current market. Some experts have said it will be an uphill battle for the FTC to prove its case. They say the market has evolved significantly since Meta acquired Instagram and WhatsApp. The case is part of a crackdown on big tech that started during the first Trump administration. Amazon, Apple, and Alphabet's Google also face similar lawsuits by U.S. antitrust enforcers. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
And President Trump saying that the ball is now in China's court amid new escalation of trade tensions. He's also set to sign an order today to stop illegal immigrants from getting Social Security benefits. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao brings us more.
Today at the White House press briefing, the press secretary brought a message from President Trump on China, saying that the ball is now in China's court as, of course, the two sides are trading different tariffs. And we just know that China retaliated with 125% tariffs on U.S. goods after President Trump upped his tariffs on China to 145%. And here's President Trump's message on China today. Watch.
Do you have an additional statement that he just shared with me in the Oval Office? The ball is in China's court. China needs to make a deal with us. We don't have to make a deal with them. There's no difference between China and any other country except they are much larger. And China wants what we have, what every country wants, what we have, the American consumer. Or to put it another way, they need our money.
And while President Trump has repeatedly said that he's willing to talk to China's Xi Jinping, no official communications between the two leaders have been reported just yet. And meanwhile, this morning, President Trump further criticized China for being, quote, brutal to American farmers, adding that China reneged on a big Boeing deal. China has announced that it's asking its airlines to pause any further taking in of deliveries from Boeing, which is an American manufacturer, amid heightened trade tensions. And meanwhile, we might hear more from President Trump this afternoon as he is set to sign a presidential memorandum aimed at stopping illegal immigrants in the U.S. from getting Social Security benefits. Here's what the press secretary said about President Trump's willingness to protect the Social Security benefits for American taxpayers who have paid into the program. Watch.
He will always protect that program. He campaigned on it, he protected it in his first term, and he's back again to continue protecting it.
And also the order today will also look into how to further prevent Social Security fraud. For example, by ordering our attorneys across the country to look into people over the age of 100 who have mismatched Social Security records, as well as look into if there's any way to punish those people who committed fraud monetarily. So yesterday we heard from the El Salvadoran president that he's not going to return a Maryland man, or what the White House calls an illegal immigrant who's part of the MS-13 gang, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, from El Salvador, his home country, back to the U.S. And today, the White House press secretary criticized the media for what she calls sensational reporting, as well as highlighted a case of a U.S. mom of 5 who was murdered by an illegal immigrant back in 2023. Watch.
Fortunately, many in this country care more about this quote-unquote Maryland father, a legal alien MS-13 gang member, than a Maryland mother and an American citizen who was brutally murdered at the hands of a different illegal alien. She was a 37-year-old mother of 5 who was jogging in an otherwise safe community northeast of Baltimore when this monster ambushed, strangled, and beat her to death before stuffing her brutalized body in a tunnel drain.
And the press secretary also told us that the president is looking into laws to see if we can deport American citizens who have committed very heinous crimes to Central American prisons. Back to you.
Moving on now, the Justice Department is announcing significant developments in 2 cases that involve drug trafficking and money laundering connected to Mexican drug cartels. Let's tune in.
Drug proceeds would make their way back to Mexico. Thanks to this joint operation, these financial networks and the leadership structures are now disrupted. And due to the announcement of these rewards, we hope to gather further information to bring them to face justice here in the United States. But this investigation wasn't just about stacking up seizures. It was about taking out the decision makers. That shift in strategy, backed by the leadership of HSI, of DEA, and the U.S. Attorney's Office here in the Northern District, is what has made this operation so successful. In November of last year, we saw one example of the success. HSI, DEA, Gwinnett County Sheriff's Office, and our partners arrested an LFM member operating a meth lab in Lawrenceville, Georgia. That single enforcement action led to the seizure of over 100 kilograms of methamphetamine, heroin, and fentanyl. Then just 2 months ago, as you've heard, the Department of State took an unprecedented step of designating La Nueva Familia Michoacan as a foreign terrorist organization, leveraging the full breadth of the United States government to attack this cartel's assets, its leadership, and bring those that wish to poison our communities to justice. This speaks volumes about the level of threat and the seriousness that federal law enforcement is taking this, as well as highlighting the impact we've made. HSI will continue to work side by side with our federal, state, and local partners to go after the top levels of these criminal organizations. We will be relentless in that pursuit, and we are united in that purpose. Together, we will keep driving these threats out of our communities. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Demetrius Hardiman, Special Agent in Charge, IRS Criminal Investigation, Atlanta Field Office. I'm proud to be here with our partners in announcing charges against 7 individuals for their alleged role in a scheme to launder drug trafficking proceeds. With our partners at the Drug Enforcement Administration, we uncovered a complex money laundering scheme in which alleged drug trafficking proceeds were sent to Mexican co-conspirators in a series of small transactions, a common ploy used by third-party money launderers to hide the origins and destinations of their funds. This tactic is called microstructuring. In this case, through a series of sophisticated investigative steps, our special agents observed the defendant sending money to a location in Mexico during a specific time range. Third-party money launderers are critical players in drug trafficking organizations. They create layers of transactions, shell businesses, and other efforts to attempt to obscure their illicit activities in a cloak of anonymity. As special agents of IRS criminal investigation, our job is to peel back those layers and uncloak their secret actions. In this case, drug trafficking proceeds were funneled through money services businesses to appear legitimate. The defendants used Atlanta area remittance businesses that look legitimate on the surface to move drug money across borders. It goes without saying that money is the lifeblood of drug trafficking organizations. They exist for no other reason. When we take out their financial infrastructure, we effectively end their operations, which has benefits that reverberate deep into the community. By breaking up these networks, we are not only removing criminals from our streets, but we are stymieing the tide of addiction and overdose and ending the cycle of violence and chaos intrinsically tied to drug trafficking organizations. So the core of our efforts is about protecting communities. It's about making sure criminal enterprises cannot profit in the shadows while wreaking havoc in our communities and diminishing the quality of life for law-abiding citizens. If nothing else, this takedown reminds us that crime leaves a financial footprint, and no one follows the money trail better than IRS criminal investigation. The successful outcome today should serve as a warning to those who believe they can outsmart the system. We will find you. We will uncover your trail, and we will hold you accountable. Thank you.
Take some questions.
All right, there's the DOJ making some announcements about these two cases involving both drug trafficking and money laundering, and it's all connected to the Mexican drug cartels. A lot of, or rather, praise there for the work these officials and their teams are doing. All right, coming up after this break, businesses are challenging President Trump's tariff authorities. We'll talk to an expert about the legal basis of it all after this break. And California is launching a new campaign to further strengthen tourism between California and Canada. The effort follows a drop in visitors and concerns over travel impacting tariffs. We'll have that and more. Stay with us.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Dave's Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Dave's enzyme fermented coffee.
If joint pain from aging is slowing you down, Omega XL can help you get back in the saddle, just like it did for John Walsh.
Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. Got to be really fit to ride these horses. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL. And look what it's done. I feel better than I've felt in the last 30 years.
I'm Reve Walsh. I'm John Walsh's wife. I ride fox hunters, and sometimes I'm in the saddle for 3-5 hours at a time. A lot of work out here.
I wouldn't have been able to do this. Muck a stall, throw hay, do all the things that needs to be done on a ranch a couple years ago. But Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great.
Once you try it, you don't want to be without it. It makes a huge difference.
It does. Take it every single day, and you know, there's a benefit. It's made you a lot nicer to me.
If you've been living with pain, it's time to get this special offer, the Omega XL, the joint health supplement that millions have trusted for more than 20 years. Omega XL, it's sourced from the green-lipped mussel, exclusively found in the pristine waters of New Zealand, some of the cleanest waters on Earth. Omega XL, it's natural, drug-free, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research that show it really works. Try Omega XL today. Pick up your phone and call the number at the bottom of your screen right now for a special offer. Buy one, get two free. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3, a value of more than $100. But call today and you pay only $39.95. That's a savings of more than 60%. Plus, it's backed by our 60-day money-back guarantee.
Try it. You got nothing to lose.
Call or go online right now to get this special offer. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3 for only $39.95. Call now.
(911), where's your emergency?
I get shot in my best friend on an accident. Oh my God.
Welcome back to Newsroom. We have some breaking news for you. Police say that they're responding to a school shooting call in Dallas at around 1 p.m. local time. School officials confirmed on X that a shooting incident occurred at Wilmer Hutchins High School. Now, there's a large police presence outside of the school. Photos show emergency vehicles are on site. Parents and community members are being urged not to come to the campus. School officials say reunification plans will be announced shortly. And we're going to keep our eye on that and bring you the latest as it develops. But moving on for now, the Department of Transportation says that it will save taxpayers more than $60 million by ending a high-speed rail contract in Texas. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy announced yesterday the agreement between the Federal Railroad Administration and Amtrak had been terminated. The project was initially announced as a private venture, but became increasingly dependent on federal funding as cost estimates increased. Duffy said on X both the FRA and Amtrak are in agreement that the Texas Central Railway project was a waste of taxpayer funds. Meanwhile, the Department of Government Efficiency says it has found a $15 million contract at the Department of Veteran Affairs. DOJ says the Veterans Affairs Department has canceled the contract, which was for salary data and analysis, and replaced it with one that cost the agency far less. Over to Indiana now, where Governor Mike Braun spoke in Indianapolis today to propose sweeping changes to the state's food assistance program. Braun was joined by Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Head of Medicare and Medicaid Services, Mehmet Oz.
More SNAP money is spent on sugar drinks and candy than on fruits and vegetables. That changes today. Today's 9 executive orders reflect a new approach to health policy in the state of Indiana, focused on empowering everyone to live a healthier, happier, longer life, and today is where we begin.
If we're spending twice as much as any other country, not getting the life expectancy benefits that we anticipate, and 30 years ago, we were about equal to Europe. Now we're about 5 years behind Europe. We're going in the wrong direction. We're not getting value for the money we're putting into it. Why? Chronic illness. It drives 70% of the total healthcare budget. And the kinds of things that are in these executive orders will help reduce that incidence of chronic disease, because it turns out that about the most patriotic thing you can do these days is to get healthy.
We can't be a strong nation if we're not a strong people. It is threatening our national security. 74% of our kids cannot qualify for military service. And it's destroying our economy and our national vigor. We're spending when my uncle was president, we spent 0 on chronic disease, 0 in this country. They were spending about $1.3 trillion a year, and we can't afford it.
Arkansas and Indiana have moved to ban soft drinks and candy from food assistance programs, which are commonly known as food stamps. The 2 states are among several taking steps to restrict the purchase of certain foods that may contribute to poor health. The restrictions continue to be a key goal for Kennedy's Make America Healthy Again agenda. Moving on, investigators have located a critical piece of evidence from the fatal Hudson River helicopter crash. 6 people were killed when the helicopter crashed last week. The National Transportation Safety Board says it recovered the chopper's main rotor and roof structure as well. With that, the NTSB says the recovery effort is now complete. In a statement yesterday, the agency said finding these key components will greatly aid the investigation. Meanwhile, the FAA grounded the helicopter company involved in the crash, citing safety concerns. A letter from the FAA's chief counsel says the company fired an employee who had voluntarily agreed to stop flights. The letter says Director of Operations Jason Costello agreed to halt operations until the investigation was complete, but just minutes later, the company's CEO told the FAA that Costello did not have that authority and that he was no longer with the company. The FAA said it suspected the firing was in retaliation for a safety-based decision. And joining us now to further break down this case is Janice Heisel, reporter with the Epoch Times. Janice, thank you so much for being here today. So we hear there, right? This company, this helicopter company, it's shut down. The investigation here is really still ongoing. It's still in the early stages, but have you heard anything new coming out?
Well, there is going to be a safety summit with across the nation of concerns coming about the helicopter industry, about use of helicopters in the United States airspace. That will be discussed on April the 22nd. The FAA is convening that meeting because of this recent crash, as well as the earlier one. That's 2 in a row in a fairly short amount of time, and it's caused quite a bit of concern, even though still flying, is believed to be really relatively safe and very safe, as a matter of fact, compared to, say, traveling in a car. It's just, it becomes extra scary when people are in flight.
And we'll get back to that in just a moment. But when I see these stories, Janice, my question here is, how regulated are these private flight companies? Could we be seeing more regulations coming out as a result of these accidents?
Well, I've covered quite a bit on aviation, and I can tell you that there's a saying that's actually quite sad. Within aviation, they say that the regulations and changes, improvements are often, quote, written in blood. And what they mean by that is, unfortunately, it takes a tragedy to cause some reforms to be made that could possibly have prevented tragedies. And so in this particular case, yes, these companies are quite regulated. I found that, for example, the pilots are required to be licensed with quite a bit of training. They have to comply with inspections for equipment. The equipment is supposed to be a big concern. In this particular case, there is a strong belief that the equipment did fail or even fell apart, broke apart here. However, earlier in the day, this same helicopter was used successfully without incident for 7 other tours.
Wow, that's pretty surprising to hear. Janice, I want to talk about the hearing with the U.S. House of Representatives Subcommittee on Aviation last month, because a really key issue I found from that was the fact that a lot of the technology that air traffic controllers use is outdated. What has the FAA done on that front up until now?
Well, I've got to tell you, over the period of time that I've been covering aviation, this has been an ongoing concern. It predates by many years my involvement with covering aviation. And one of the biggest concerns raised is that the equipment is so antiquated, they're even using floppy disks and strips of paper as part of their job, the air traffic controllers. And a lot of people think that's just crazy and ridiculous. Some people don't even know what floppy disks are. Those are, little pieces of storage media that really aren't in very common use at all and haven't been for decades.
Janice, why is that?
Well, there's a lot of reasons, but I can tell you that a lot of times what happens is there will be a push to improve things with air traffic controllers and with the FAA, but then maybe there's a threat of a government shutdown. And so a lot of the changes that they were trying to make have to be put on hold. Then, of course, the cost goes up if there is a delay in, replacing equipment or upgrading technology. And so that stop, start type of approach to improving things has really caused further delays. And on top of it, you do have government bureaucracy, red tape to deal with.
All right, well, Janice, I want to go back to a point you made earlier, but really with the news coverage of all of these accidents that we've been seeing, it's left some flyers on the edge when it comes to air travel. Tell us more about what you've heard from experts about the safety of flying right now.
Well, commercial air flights, the ones where people will hop on a plane, that you buy your ticket and you head to wherever you'd like to go. Commercial air travel is so safe. There are thousands and thousands of flights happening all the time without any incident whatsoever. Still, very statistically, the safest mode of travel. But again, the news coverage starts to get people on edge. The focus, whenever there is something that goes wrong, it does make the news and it does cause people to concern. Now, the experts I talk to, they don't want to minimize those concerns, but they also do feel they need to be put into context.
All right, before we go, Janice, I want to touch on your report about 2 J6 participants who are running for Senate. Tell us more about that. What's their message? How are they being received out there?
Well, the 2 J6ers who have already declared that they're running for the U.S. Senate are Jake Lang, he's running in Florida, and then we also have Derek Evans out of West Virginia. And both of these gentlemen tell me that they're not just focused on criminal justice reform and the justice system, which they both say was weaponized against them and against the other January 6th of 2021 participants. But they also are very interested in other aspects of improving our government. And they just say they are patriots out to improve America. And that's their message.
So how do you see their chances of winning the election? What kind of obstacles would they have to overcome here?
I got very curious about that, and I spoke to a couple of experts who were political scholars, and both of them told me that they do have to overcome, a lot of people out there in the public are either just tired of hearing about January 26th that has happened in 2021, 4 years ago, or they still have a lot of stigma about this event. Some people are very supportive of the January 6ers, so they do have those people in their corner. But these people will need to show that either they were nonviolent and wrongfully prosecuted, or that somehow they have a very good explanation that would help to mitigate criticism of their actions on that day.
All right, well, it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. Janice Heisel, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you.
Coming up next, the U.S. is pulling out of a tomato trade agreement with Mexico from July 14th. Most Mexican tomatoes imported into the U.S. will face duties of nearly 21%. And California is launching a new campaign to further strengthen tourism between California and Canada. The effort follows a drop in visitors and concerns over travel being impacted by tariffs. That and more after the break.
Food. It fuels our bodies, nourishes our spirits, and brings us together. Because we all need nutritious food to thrive.
Food gives me energy and it also helps me focus.
But not everyone knows where their next meal is coming from. And 1 in 7 people in America face hunger. It's tougher than ever for too many of us. But the simple truth is, ending hunger is possible, and it starts with you. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, to help families in your community facing hunger. Feeding America works from coast to coast with partner food banks, food pantries, and meal programs. Your monthly gift delivers food where it's needed most, puts fresh food on the table, and helps kids have healthy meals all year round, even when school is out.
You can see the difference with the kids when they're full. Food is everything.
Please call the number on your screen or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Give $19 a month. Your first gift can double an impact. And we'll send you this free canvas grocery bag as a reminder of how you're helping to end hunger for good.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Food donations help me tremendously, and I'm very grateful for the food bank.
I have hope. The simple truth is, ending hunger in America is possible. You can help make it happen. The need is urgent. Call or go online now to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double in impact.
I can't get a hold of my mom.
I'm sure it's nothing.
I've called her 5 times.
I'm sure she's fine.
Is Grandma okay? Help! I've fallen and I can't get up.
Don't worry, ma'am. We're sending help right now.
Hello?
Hello, this is Life Alert. Your mother had an emergency, and we dispatched paramedics to her home.
Oh my gosh, what happened?
She had a fall, but don't worry. She is safe, and the paramedics are helping her right now.
Thank you.
Life Alert saves a life every 11 minutes. With one simple touch of a button, Life Alert sends help immediately. Whether it's to report a fall, a medical emergency, or an intruder, Life Alert sends first responders fast.
For a free brochure, call 800-382-9846. 800-382-9846. That's 800-382-9846.
Thanks for staying with us. The U.S. is pulling out of a tomato trade agreement with Mexico, saying that it no longer protects American growers. The Commerce Department announced yesterday that starting July 14th, most Mexican tomatoes imported into the U.S. will face duties of nearly 21%. Officials say the move aims to give American farmers a fair shot in the market. Back in 2019, Mexican producers reached a deal with the Trump administration to avoid an anti-dumping investigation and to resolve a tariff dispute. At the time, the United States said the agreement closed loopholes and included an inspection system. California Governor Gavin Newsom launched an international campaign to welcome and encourage Canadians to visit the Golden State.
The Golden State and Canada have always shared so much in common. Sure, you know who's trying to stir things up back in D.C., but don't let that ruin your beach plans. California, it's the ultimate playground. 2,000 miles from Washington and a world away in mindset. From our iconic beaches and national parks to world-class wine, food, and outdoor adventure, there's something here for everyone. Last year, nearly 2 million Canadians visited California, because here in California, we've got plenty of sunshine and a whole lot of love for our neighbors up north.
The campaign is being launched with help from the nonprofit group Visit California. It mirrors Newsom's recent request for other countries not to raise tariffs on California products. Newsom's office says tourism has dropped to its lowest point since the COVID-19 pandemic. In February, visits from Canada were down 12% compared to the year before. That number is expected to rise if tariffs stay in place. The upcoming campaign will build on Visit California's $5.2 million yearly marketing investment in Canada. The CEO of Advanced Micro Devices said today they are ready to start chip production at a Taiwanese chipmaker's plant in Arizona. The CEO, Lisa Su, said they will make more AI servers here in the U.S. Speaking at a news conference in Taiwan, Su acknowledged the dynamic situation in the overall supply chain, but she also added AMD is lucky to have broad and deep partnerships to help counter any issues.
When you think about the importance of the supply chain, we need to have a supply chain in all places. So certainly Taiwan is very important to us from a supply chain. And also in the United States, we just completed our acquisition of ZT Systems, which is a leading supply chain AI server capability in the United States. So yes, we are also expanding our U.S. capability.
AMD, one of the largest providers of personal computer chips, relies mostly on TSMC, the world's largest contract chip maker in Taiwan, to make its chips. President Trump said on Sunday that he would be announcing the tariff rate on imported semiconductors this week. He said there would be flexibility with some companies in the sector. Meanwhile, the EU and China have reopened talks regarding the sale of Chinese EVs in Europe. This brings concerns to some economists who believe the EU should better align with President Trump's policies to protect the European market. NTD's international correspondent David Vives reports.
The EU and China have begun negotiating minimum prices for Chinese-manufactured electric vehicles. This could mark a significant shift in EU policy toward China, as the bloc implemented increased tariffs on Chinese-built EVs in 2024. These talks follow President Trump's announcement on Wednesday of a tariff hike on China, raising rates from 104% to 145%. German car manufacturers have welcomed the potential EU-China agreement, as it could boost their car sales in China. However, energy policy analyst Fabien Bouglet warns that Chinese EVs could devastate Europe's car industry.
This would be dumping. The Chinese have managed for years to produce low-cost electric cars, and if they gain a captive market like Europe, they'll lower their electric car prices even further. In other words, after being heavily disadvantaged in the energy market. While Europe face a crippling setback with the price of energy, it will also face a huge industrial disadvantage.
He also said European driving Chinese EVs would have a high environmental cost.
If an electric car is built in China, the Chinese electricity mix is 60 to 70% fossil fuel electricity, mainly coal-fired. This means that the electric car produced in China has been produced with electricity that has a high environmental impact. Also, what is the energy used to produce the electricity used by cars in European countries? In Germany, this would be coal and gas. This makes no sense if you want to make it look good for the planet.
Economists note that China heavily relies on exports for economic growth, with Chinese companies earning billions from exports to the US before President Trump imposed tariffs. In March, China recorded a $100 billion trade surplus before the tariffs announcements. With President Trump's new tariffs, China may seek for new markets for its exports. According to economists, this sets the stage for potential dumping of Chinese products in EU if the European economies aren't cautious enough. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
The U.S. envoy to Hungary warned the country about bringing in Chinese investment. Acting Ambassador Robert Palladino spoke in Budapest. He said that China poses a strategic challenge to the U.S. and its allies, and that vigilance and unity are needed. In recent years, Hungary has attracted 44% of all Chinese investment in Europe. Palladino said the U.S. is not trying to lecture Hungary, and that the China issue is not about picking sides, but rather about preserving Hungary's future. Britain's Liberal Democrat Party leader Ed Davey has urged the UK's Foreign Secretary to question China's ambassador to Britain. This comes after a Liberal Democrat member of Parliament was deported from Hong Kong while on a trip to visit her newborn grandson.
Vera Hophouse, the Liberal Democrat MP for Bath, was going to Hong Kong as a grandmother to see her newly born grandson. And the Chinese authorities stopped her and deported her. It actually should worry anyone in any part of the political sphere in Britain. This is not the way to expect MPs to be treated by China. Liberal Democrats have stood up for the people of Hong Kong against oppression from Beijing. We've stood up for human rights, and I don't think the Chinese government likes that. And this may be a part of the retaliation, even though Vera was only on a family visit. But I think that shows you that they're behaving in a shocking way. They need to back down. And I very much hope the British government and the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, will call in the Chinese ambassador and demand an explanation. We shouldn't be kowtowing, I'm afraid, to Beijing.
Davey called on China to release the tapes of the interrogation of when Hophouse was denied entry into Hong Kong. Hophouse is a member of the Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China, or IPAC, which has been critical of Beijing's human rights record. She said she believes the action was taken to silence her. Writing in the British newspaper The Guardian, she called on the UK government to be direct with China over her deportation, saying that if China cannot be straight and doesn't answer legitimate questions, the UK cannot engage with China on the basis of mutual trust. The British Foreign Office was contacted for comment. Now, China has previously banned several British politicians from entering the country, including IPAC members. Ukraine reportedly attacks Russia's Kursk region overnight, just one day after a deadly attack by Moscow. This as the U.S., NATO, and others keep working on a peace agreement. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar reports.
Sirens could be heard in Russia's Kursk region as Ukraine reportedly attacked with dozens of drones. Russian officials say the attack killed an elderly woman, injured 9 people, and ignited fires in several buildings. A spokesperson for Russia's investigative committee commented on Tuesday.
Ukrainian militants massively attacked residential buildings in the city of Kursk tonight. A drone also hit an ambulance station.
Meanwhile, in Ukraine, NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte is visiting the southern city of Odessa. While meeting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Rutte discussed the peace talks led by the US.
These discussions are not easy, not least in the wake of this horrific violence. But we all support President Trump's push for peace.
President Trump has been trying to implement a full ceasefire in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So far, the two sides only agreed to a limited truce on energy and infrastructure for 30 days. On Tuesday, Russia said there's no clear outline of a peace agreement yet.
But there's a political will to move towards this agreement. And I repeat once again, we highly appreciate the constructive and meaningful contacts we had with the U.S.
On Monday, Trump once again highlighted the need to stop the killing and bring an end to the conflict. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Up next, from the Pacific Coast to movie backlots, the 2028 Olympics are mapping out stages for the Los Angeles Games. LA 28 announced new venues, with some events taking athletes far beyond the city. And a dramatic rescue caught on video shows crews saving a hiker stranded on a cliff in Southern California. The woman, trapped and clinging to the edge, was rescued after sending an emergency text for help. Stay with us.
Hi friends, Richard Karn here. Now I'm known as the guy who can fix just about anything, but the technology in most appliances requires very special training to fix. My point is, even I know when I've met my match, and that's why my family has Choice Home Warranty. So we won't get stuck with high-priced repairs.
Choice Home Warranty covers over 25 major home systems and appliances. That's your AC, heating, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and so much more.
Imagine for less than a cup of coffee a day, Choice Home Warranty can help protect you from expensive major system and appliance breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. But you have to call now before it's too late.
Every homeowner should have Choice Home Warranty. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your appliances.
Washing machine, dryer, refrigerator, air condition. If I had any issues arise, they were able to take care of it immediately.
Now, homeowner's insurance won't protect you when your home's major systems and appliances break down due to normal wear and tear. But Choice Home Warranty will. They can help cover repairs and replacements.
Choice Home Warranty is the best warranty we've ever used. It would save you so much money in the long run.
Hey, I'm not the only one raving about Choice Home Warranty. They were named a Best Home Warranty Company and Best Claim Service by U.S. News 360 Reviews.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and get access to a nationwide network of over 15,000 technicians and the latest appointment setting technology, so you'll know when they're on their way.
If I have an issue with an appliance or something around the house, I just call up Choice Home Warranty and I don't have to worry about that.
So, do what this old DIYer did and call Choice Home Warranty now before something breaks down. Tell them I sent you and get your first month free.
Call Choice Home Warranty before it's too late and get protection for your heating, AC, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and more. Call for your free quote today. Call in the next 5 minutes and get your first month free. 800-360-6782. 800-360-6782.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere. And this is going to be Addie's room.
I am blind.
You really don't like it?
I hope so. Yeah. I know this road is there for me.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
Ways down by the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
I got this.
I know this road is there for me.
Okay.
If I'm really free, take me down to the river and wash me.
Welcome back. A dramatic video shows rescue crews saving a hiker stranded on a cliff in Southern California. The woman was stuck on the Pacific Coast Trail in Riverside County over the weekend. The Riverside County Sheriff's Aviation Division shared the rescue on their Instagram. Now, the woman sent an emergency text to 911 using a Garmin-type device. Riverside County Sheriff's Rescue 9 was sent to the scene and found the woman in a dangerous spot gripping onto the cliff. Officials say she had been there for over an hour and appeared shaken. The video shows her legs shaking as she screamed during the rescue. She was lifted to safety and flown away by helicopter. She had cuts on her leg but was otherwise uninjured. And the 2028 Los Angeles Olympic venues became clearer on Tuesday. LA28 announced locations for more than a dozen sports, including beach volleyball, surfing, and baseball. All baseball games will be held at Dodger Stadium, which was used for exhibition games at the 1984 Olympics. Beach volleyball is set for Long Beach, while surfing will take place off the San Clemente coast. Squash will make its debut, taking place at the Universal Studios lot. New additions include venues in Venice, downtown LA, Carson, Anaheim, and the San Fernando Valley. Previously announced sites include the LA Memorial Coliseum, BMO Stadium, and Crypto.com Arena. Some events will be held outside LA, like softball and canoe slalom in Oklahoma City. A group of small U.S. businesses are fighting back against President Trump's tariff authority. On Monday, the Liberty Justice Center filed a lawsuit in the U.S. Court of International Trade. The suit argues Trump's tariffs are illegal under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. The legal advocacy group is representing 5 small businesses that claim they've been severely harmed by the tariffs. The lawsuit states the IEEPA gives the president authority to impose emergency economic powers in response to a threat to national security or the economy. However, the group believes President Trump's criteria in this case have not been met. And Monday's complaint also alleges the law does not allow for the president to unilaterally impose tariffs. NTD's Chris Spears reports on the legal basis for these tariffs at issue in this lawsuit.
It's no surprise the sweeping new reciprocal tariffs are facing lawsuits. The levies placed on all nations ranged from 10 to 50% when announced. They've since been reduced to 10% for every country except China. But they still erased months of stock market gains and could increase prices for U.S. consumers and businesses. What is the legal basis for these tariffs in the first place?
The International Economic Emergency Powers Act is a statute that allows the president, upon making a determination that of an unusual and extraordinary threat, to take action, for example, tariff action or trade action that allows, for example, the president or would allow the president to adjust tariffs.
Professor Corrales says the president has invoked the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, or IEEPA, for 2 tariff actions.
Both the fentanyl tariffs that he imposed on Canada, Mexico, and China, and for because of the trade deficit.
Now, the Liberty Justice Center is suing the Trump administration based on its use of the IEEPA law to justify these tariffs.
The Liberty Justice Center is questioning the president's determination under the IEEPA statute by saying that trade deficits have always been, the United States has faced trade deficits for a long time. They're not an emergency.
The administration's likely response?
Of course, this is an unusual situation. Not only our trade deficit has been piling up, it's cumulative over years. There's a cumulative effect on deindustrialization. We face a number of threats from, most specifically, China, Iran, etc. We need to build a bigger navy. We need to take action.
This lawsuit was filed in the Court of International Trade. Corrales doesn't think the court will take this challenge.
They haven't granted these types of requests in the past. because they know the president has authority under the statute.
The IEEPA statute is the basis for the new reciprocal tariffs, but something called Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act is the basis for President Trump's sector-specific tariffs on steel, aluminum, and cars. Section 232 allows the president to use tariffs for national security reasons, like ensuring the country isn't reliant on adversaries for defense industry materials. Professor Corrales says tariffs based on this statute are likely to endure any legal challenges.
As far as I know, nobody's challenging the president's authority there. And the president has already won these cases in the first administration. And so the tariffs are likely to stay.
The Trump administration is in the planning stage of implementing semiconductor and pharmaceutical tariffs, also based on Section 232. Chris Beers, NTD News.
Coming up next, Johnson & Johnson projects hundreds of millions of tariff-related costs. The healthcare giant says its medical technology division will be hit the hardest. We'll have that story and more in the next hour. Stay with us.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
大提琴不仅仅是一件乐器，它是有生命、有感情的，需要我们精心的照顾。往往我们一个小小的动作，可能都会对人情绪产生微妙的影响。天音的品牌是福星，我们对于传统的理念很荣幸被神韵艺术团选为指定供应商。时间是酿造音色的不可替代的陪伴。我跟大提琴已经有60多年的友情了，每一把琴都有它自己的个性，熟悉它，才能真正发挥它的潜力。所以，我希望给你的每一把琴，都是首先我所信任的。
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. How to safely build a fire, and how to control the flames. But I can only teach wildfire prevention. Only you can prevent wildfires.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
So there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. and we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Our stories. 3 Democratic senators are stepping down at the end of their terms. NTD's Washington correspondent has the details. Cash in this tax day with deals, discounts, and freebies being offered by restaurants and shops. A new survey of fund managers says investors are leaving the U.S. stock market in droves, and Bank of America's global research says the trend is here to stay. Another bank is returning strong profits for the first quarter. Citigroup reaping the benefits from volatile markets fueling activity. Rental car company Hertz confirms a breach in customer data from late last year. Find out what personal data could be at risk.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon. Thanks for staying with us. President Trump says the ball is in China's court amid new escalation of trade tensions. He's also set to sign an order today to stop illegal immigrants from getting Social Security benefits. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao brings us more.
Today at the White House press briefing, the press secretary brought a message from President Trump on China, saying that the ball is now in China's court as, of course, the two sides are trading different tariffs. And we just know that China retaliated with 125% tariffs on U.S. goods after President Trump upped his tariffs on China to 145%. And here's President Trump's message on China today. Watch.
You have an additional statement that he just shared with me in the Oval Office. The ball is in China's court. China needs to make a deal with us. We don't have to make a deal with them. There's no difference between China and any other country except they are much larger. And China wants what we have, what every country wants, what we have, the American consumer. Or to put it another way, they need our money.
And while President Trump has repeatedly said that he's willing to talk to China's Xi Jinping, no official communications between the two leaders have been reported just yet. And meanwhile, this morning, President Trump further criticized China for being, quote, brutal to American farmers, adding that China reneged on a big Boeing deal. China has announced that it's asking its airlines to pause any further taking in of deliveries from Boeing, which is an American manufacturer, amid heightened trade tensions. And meanwhile, we might hear more from President Trump this afternoon as he is set to sign a presidential memorandum aimed at stopping illegal immigrants in the U.S. from getting Social Security benefits. Here's what the press secretary said about President Trump's willingness to protect the Social Security benefits for American taxpayers who have paid into the program. Watch.
He will always protect that program. He campaigned on it. He protected it in his first term, and he's back again to continue protecting it.
And also, the order today will also look into how to further prevent Social Security fraud. For example, by ordering attorneys across the country to look into people over the age of 100 who have mismatched Social Security records, as well as look into if there's any way to punish those people who committed fraud monetarily. So yesterday, we heard from the El Salvadoran president that he's not going to return a Maryland man, or what the White House calls an illegal immigrant who's part of the MS-13 gang, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, from El Salvador, his home country, back to the U.S. And today, the White House press secretary criticized the media for what she calls sensational reporting, as well as highlighted a case of a U.S. mom of 5 who was murdered by an illegal immigrant back in 2023. Watch.
Fortunately, many in this country care more about this quote-unquote Maryland father, a legal alien MS-13 gang member, than a Maryland mother and an American citizen who was brutally murdered at the hands of a different illegal alien. She was a 37-year-old mother of 5 who was jogging in an otherwise safe community northeast of Baltimore when this monster ambushed, strangled, and beat her to death before stuffing her brutalized body in a tunnel drain.
And the press secretary also told us that the president is looking into laws to see if we can deport American citizens who have committed very heinous crimes to Central American prisons. Back to you.
Approximately 20 lawmakers are making moves to leave Congress in the next couple of years. Some are vying for a governor's mansion and others are ending their years of service. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez has more on the story.
But I will say, over these last few years, it gets harder every single year. The middle is disappearing. Unfortunately, in this country, it tends to be the people with the loudest voice who yell the most aggressively get the most attention.
That was Senator Gary Peters, the Democrat from Michigan, who has already announced that he will be stepping down at the end of his term, following in the footsteps of former Democratic Senator Debbie Stabenow, also from Michigan, who stepped down in January. Senator Peters is one of 3 Democratic senators stepping down at the end of their term. All 3 cited changes within the Democratic Party as main reasons.
Has gotten to the point where if you work with the other side, that's considered by some to be a negative. They weren't thinking about what the seriousness of the alternative was, to have a government shutdown.
Senator Shaheen was disappointed that her party, in her opinion, discourages bipartisanship. Michigan is a swing state that in 2024 voted for Donald Trump, but narrowly chose Democrat Lisa Slotkin to fill in the empty Senate seat. New Hampshire is also a swing state. The open Senate seats are an opportunity for Republicans to expand their majority.
Conclude that we have big problems in terms of the relationship that we have with voters that we thought were our voters. And I actually am energized by the idea of making space for the next great leader to step into the role.
During the 2026 midterm elections, 10 states with Republican governors will pick a new head for their executive branch. Congressman Byron Donalds has announced that he will be seeking to replace DeSantis and already has Donald Trump's support to run for the governorship of Florida. Congressman Andy Biggs, the former chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, is running for the governorship of Arizona, and Senator Marsha Blackburn has said she wants to run for the governorship of Tennessee. In total, approximately 20 lawmakers from the 435 congressmen and 100 senators will be looking for an exit from Capitol Hill. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
China has reportedly ordered its airlines not to take further deliveries of Boeing jets. The move is the latest response by Beijing to U.S. tariffs of 145% on Chinese goods. Shares of Boeing fell today after Bloomberg reported the news. Shares were down 1% by midday, but China is not a big customer of Boeing, with the company only receiving orders for 28 planes in the last 6 years. These were mostly for freighters or orders from Chinese leasing companies. Not a single order for a passenger jet was from a Chinese airline. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg took to the stand today for another round of questioning about his role in the operating of the company's alleged illegal monopoly. Our legal correspondent Arlene Richards has the details.
Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg was back in a Washington courtroom on Tuesday for a historic antitrust trial against his company. The results of the trial could force the company to break off Instagram and WhatsApp. The Federal Trade Commission filed the case under the first Trump administration. They're alleging that Meta operates an illegal monopoly. More specifically, the government is accusing the company of buying Instagram and WhatsApp, 2 social media powerhouses, to squash the competition and eliminate rivals. Meta counters that it still has rivals such as YouTube and TikTok. On day 1, the government pointed to emails in which Zuckerberg proposed buying Instagram to neutralize a Facebook competitor and expressed concern that WhatsApp could grow into a social network. The company said in a statement that it's been more than a year since the FTC reviewed and cleared its acquisitions. They contend the competitive landscape has shifted dramatically since then and that the government will have to show the company holds a monopoly in the current market. Some experts have said it will be an uphill battle for the FTC to prove its case. They say the market has evolved significantly since Meta acquired Instagram and WhatsApp. The case is part of a crackdown on big tech that started during the first Trump administration. Amazon, Apple, and Alphabet's Google also face similar lawsuits by U.S. antitrust enforcers. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Indiana Governor Mike Braun spoke in Indianapolis today to propose sweeping changes to the state's food assistance program. Braun was joined by Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Head of Medicare and Medicaid Services, Mehmet Oz.
More SNAP money is spent on sugar drinks and candy than on fruits and vegetables. That changes today. Today's 9 executive orders reflect a new approach to health policy in the state of Indiana, focused on empowering everyone to live a healthier, happier, longer life, and today is where we begin.
If we're spending twice as much as any other country, not getting the life expectancy benefits that we anticipate, and 30 years ago, we were about equal to Europe. Now we're about 5 years behind Europe. We're going in the wrong direction. We're not getting value for the money we're putting into it. Why? Chronic illness. It drives 70% of the total healthcare budget. And the kinds of things that are in these executive orders will help reduce that incidence of chronic disease, because it turns out that about the most patriotic thing you can do these days is to get healthy.
We can't be a strong nation if we're not a strong people. It is threatening our national security. 74% of our kids cannot qualify for military service. And it's destroying our economy and our national vigor. We're spending my uncle was president, we spend 0 on chronic disease, 0 in this country. We're spending about $1.3 trillion a year, and we can't afford it.
Arkansas and Indiana have moved to ban soft drinks and candy from food assistance programs, commonly known as food stamps. The 2 states are among several taking steps to restrict the purchase of certain foods that may contribute to poor health. The restrictions continue to be a key goal for Kennedy's Make America Healthy Again agenda. The Department of Transportation says it will save taxpayers more than $60 million by ending a high-speed rail contract in Texas. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy announced yesterday the agreement between the Federal Railroad Administration and Amtrak had been terminated. The project was initially announced as a private venture, but became increasingly dependent on federal funding as cost estimates increased. Duffy said on X both the FRA and Amtrak are in agreement that the Texas Central Railway project is a waste of taxpayer funds. Meanwhile, the Department of Government Efficiency says it has found a $15 million contract at the Department of Veteran Affairs. DOJ says the Veteran Affairs Department has canceled the contract, which was for salary data and analysis, and replaced it with one that cost the agency far less. Coming up, rewarding taxpayers with discounts and giveaways this tax day. Restaurants are offering up burgers, donuts, shaved ice, and more. Stay tuned when we come back.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Gyeong Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
We are taught you don't talk about your problems with nobody because you could get in trouble. And I've been through a lot. Anxiety, depression, sexual assault. When I decided to get help, my life changed. And the mental health box, that was one of the big tools. Accepting help means that we are allowing somebody to bless our life. It's freeing. We got stronger together. Love your mind.
Okay, happening now at the White House, President Trump is participating in a Commander-in-Chief trophy presentation to the Navy shipmen, the United States Naval Academy football team. Take a look.
Kane, where is he? There he is. I talked about him in my speeches for years. Who knew I was going to be appointing him to be the top? And it's an honor. It's a real honor. Everything you did with me was perfect. I said, what happened to that guy, Raisin Kane? I want him. And that's what happened. And so you're going to do a great job. I have no doubt about it. Thanks, Dan. Acting Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral James Kilby. Admiral, thank you. Congratulations. And Superintendent of the Naval Academy, Vice Admiral Yvette Davids. Yvette? Oh, hello, Yvette. How are you, Yvette? But I especially want to thank and congratulate Athletic Director Chet Gladchuk, who will soon retire after 24 years. I looked at him and I said, this is a young-looking guy. I don't like this retirement stuff. But after 24 years, and he's going to do other things, I guarantee you that it'll also be incredible. But it's going to be very hard to top what he's done as athletic director. He's had the honor of 4 national championships, 251 conference titles, and 352 All-American athletes. That's not bad. Where are you? Where are you? That is not bad. So you had all of these All-American athletes. Any name athlete that really stands out, or were they just all great athletes? Everyone, as far as you're concerned, they're all the same, right? Great job you've done. What a record that is. Who has a record like that? I also want to thank some of the newly appointed members of the Naval Academy's Board of Visitors. Sean Spicer is here, and Walt Nauta. Now, Walt could be, he's thinking about going to Guam someday, and he'll be taken over as governor, but we won't mention that right now, Walt, will we, huh? He's fantastic. He's been with me for a long time, and he's great. And Sean, where's Sean Spicer? Sean, congratulations. It's a great honor. I can tell you, a lot of people wanted that position. So you guys are going to do it well. I have no doubt about it. The story of this incredible season began last February when the Navy football team entered the weight room for the winter workouts. I wish I could have joined you, but I just never was. I was never too much into lifting weights. I should have done it. I could have been president someday if I did. After 4 disappointing seasons, it was so disappointed. Your coach, Brian Newberry, plastered pictures of this magnificent trophy on every wall to remind you of the ultimate prize. And in 2024, you lived up to Coach Newberry's vision, and you showed the world, the midshipmen, and that you know how to fight, and win, right? And that's what you did. That's what you did. Wow. That's a hell of a trophy. How much does that weigh? I don't know. Am I supposed to carry that? I don't think it can be done. I hear it's quite heavy, actually. You won 10 of 13 games, including 9 by double digits. You beat Air Force, you beat Army, and now this 170-pound trophy, that's what it is yours once again. And I have to tell you, you had some brilliant players. On offense, you were led by an incredible fullback, team co-captain, Daba Fofana. Where is Daba? Where are you? Come on. he hard? Coach, is he a hard guy to tackle? Could I tackle him running full speed? You don't suggest it, right? You want to say something? Come on.
I'm just going to say we couldn't have done it without Brian Newberry here, my co-captain here, Colin Ramos, and just everyone buying into the mission. And I'm excited. Praise the Lord.
Thank you. That's a great player, huh? That's great. Thank you very much. It's really beautiful. We have, on offense, we have a quarterback who is also very, very special. I hear he's great. Blake Horvath. Blake, where are you, Blake? Where are you? Come on up here. You said both strong and accurate on, please.
Oh, appreciate it. No, it's an honor, right, to share this stage with President Trump. And, you know, I speak for the team when I say that. So thank you for having us. And, you know, it's all about the team. Trophy's a team. So, you know, great honor. Thank you, sir.
Are you being back, or are you?
Yes, sir. I'll be back next year.
Oh, I'm going to be watching. I hear you. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Blake. We're going to all be watching. This year, Blake tied the school record for touchdown passes in a single season, rushed for more than 1,200 yards. Wow, that's pretty good. And set a new school record for the longest rushing touchdown when he faked a handoff during a read option, carrying the ball 95 yards into the end zone to help beat Oklahoma. That's a serious team. We're not playing games here, Coach. Wow, is he a pretty good runner? Is he fast? That's amazing. 195 yards for a quarterback. I'd say that's pretty good. But because of your teamwork, the midshipmen had the 6th best rushing offense and the #1 red zone touchdown offense. That's a big deal in all of college football. A truly amazing achievement. But to succeed, you have to excel on both sides of the ball. And the midshipmen had the #4 ranked red zone defense, led by one of the best tacklers in college football, linebacker and defensive captain, Colin Ramos. Where is Colin?
I'll say something.
Say a couple.
It's an absolute honor to be here. It was an amazing season. I'm so proud of these guys. And thank you, President Trump, for having us. Really an honor. Thank you.
I'll bet you're a tough guy. Huh? To do that, you got to be tough. Congratulations. That's beautiful. Great, huh? Opposing teams feared your secondary, especially the first ever midshipman with 2 pick sixes in a single game. Comeback, it was a big comeback to Sean Peel.
Yeah, we're just very grateful to be here. That's it, really.
It's called the strong silent type, right? Thank you very much, Deshaun. And no one can forget contributions of the All-Star Safety Special Teams Player of the Year, and I guess an NFL prospect. A number of them are Ray Lane. Ray?
Yeah, I just want to say it's an honor to be here. Thank you for the support. You know, go Navy, beat Army.
In December, I was honored to personally attend the 125th Army-Navy game in a battle that would be one of the best ever between the schools. It really went down in the history books, Coach. After you held the lead all game, the fourth quarter Army offense prepared to tie it up. They were getting right down there. I was there to watch, and you showed something that was amazing. You showed a very brilliant game time, Coach IQ, I guess you'd call that, huh? Were you happy with the end? Yes, you were very happy. Did you think you were going to win the game at that point? Okay, he's got to say that, but it was pretty amazing, actually. You faked the 4th down punt and gave the ball to the 6-foot-tall, 285-pound nose guard, Landon Robinson, who found the seam and rumbled 29 yards down the field to clinch the victory and to beat Army. Okay, where are you now? Where are you? Come on. Wow. I wouldn't want to tackle him.
Thank you, sir. First off, I just like to say thank you to Mr. President for inviting us. Super thankful. Wouldn't be here without my teammates, without my coaches for, calling the play and making sure that it was open for us to run it. So super thankful and excited for years to come. So.
Great job.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
That'd be a hard guy to tackle, wouldn't it, Coach? It's painful. It's called painful. Great job. With the win, this trophy, you secure your spot as one of the greatest teams in Navy football history. That's a tremendous honor. You've had some great teams. As president, I've no higher honor than serving as the commander-in-chief of the America's Armed Forces. And I have to tell you that I've gotten to know so many of the people at the Academy, not only football players, just people generally. Roger Starbuck is a friend of mine and a great person. Played golf with him. And the last time I played with him, he hit a shot, looked like we were in trouble, and he came out from behind a tree from about 130 yards away. He had no shot to the green, and it ended up about 6 inches from the hole. And I said, well, that's Roger Starbuck, right? That's him. He was great. I tell you, when he played, he'd drop back, and he was in a different league. He was really amazing. What a player. What a player. What a great guy he is. But he loves your place. Since I took the oath of office, the spirit of our military has soared to new heights. Today, I'm proud to announce that in February, the U.S. Navy had its best recruiting numbers since 2002. That's a long time ago. And under my administration, the Navy is on track to have the best recruiting year since the start of the war and the war on terror, but going back further than that, probably 25 to 30 years. So I can say this strongly. About 7 months ago, Pete, they were having numbers that were a disaster. And over the last 2 months, 2.5 months, the numbers have gone through the roof. So it's great. Michael, same thing. And the numbers went through the roof. And it's also true with all of the armed forces, and it's true with our police, with our firemen. There's a lot of spirit right now in the country that we didn't have 6 months ago. So that's an honor. But you have your highest recruiting numbers in about 20 years, and that's fantastic. That's pretty good, Sean, when you hear that, right? Pretty good. You can be proud. Within this amazing group of young men are 23 seniors who will graduate next month, including 13 Navy ensigns and 10 Marine Corps second lieutenants. Over the past 4 years, they've grown morally, mentally, and physically in preparation for their service to our nation. They're not just great football players, and you can see this, that they are just amazing people. They're true American warriors and future submarine captains and fighter pilots and Marine infantry and Navy SEALs. And we have I shouldn't say this too loud because some people aren't thrilled, but I'm thrilled. We have the largest budget we've ever had. We're buying gorgeous new ships, gorgeous new. And John, you're going to be working on that. He's a great, John Phelan's a great businessman, one of the best. And you're going to get that job done. And we're going to make them beautiful looking ships too. The look is very important to me, John. You know, a lot of times they'll show me a ship or a plane, and I say, that doesn't look good. They say, well, it's stealth. I said, I don't care if it's stealth or not. We're going to change it if we have to. I'm not sure I believe so much in the stealth thing, but we want the most beautiful equipment, the best equipment. That's what we're going to get, and you're going to lead the way, and I'll help you too because I like doing that stuff. And we're going to get a lot of ships, a lot of planes, and for all of the armed services. So I appreciate it, John. Do a job. And I just say to the gentleman behind me, your commitment is something very special. And as long as I'm Commander-in-Chief, the United States will always have the strongest, fiercest, and most powerful Navy on the sea. And again, we're going to restock it like it hasn't been restocked before. We're going to have $1 trillion budget. Think of it. You know, it's like crazy. It's crazy, but more than anybody else by double. And we're going to be in a league. I rebuilt our armed forces in my first term, got them almost entirely rebuilt. Then we had a catastrophe known as Biden, and in Afghanistan, he gave so much of the equipment away, but still it was only a small fraction of what we had done. And we're restocking it now, and we're going to have something that nobody's ever had before. So I'm counting on all of you people in the front to get out there, and we got to get the best equipment in the world. And we're going to pay the price, but we're going to get the best equipment in the world. We have to have it. Lots of ammunition too. We get a little low on ammunition. I came into office and they said, first time they said, "Sir, we're very low on ammunition." I said, "Don't say that to the enemy. I don't want the enemy to hear that." And I came in this time and they said, "Sir, you're low on ammunition again." We gave a lot of it away, you know that, but we have to keep a lot of it. We have to keep it for ourselves also. So we're going to work together and we're going to do something great, Pete. And you're going to do a fantastic job doing the job you're already doing. You've made a big impact. So I'd like to now introduce a very special man, a great coach. You would rate him great, right? Good or great? Good. Oh boy, am I glad you said that. Would I be in trouble if he said anything? But there's nothing much you can say because we see his record. So, Coach, could you say a couple of words, please? Brian Newbrough. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
And many thanks to your staff for taking care of us today and herding us around the building. Appreciate that. And many thanks to everyone here in attendance to honor these special young men here today. We're humbled and grateful to be here. The highest honor and the most important tangible goal in our program is to be standing here in the White House with our Commander-in-Chief and all of you here today, proudly representing the United States Naval Academy, the entire brigade of midshipmen, and all the men and women serving in our Navy and our Marine Corps, both past and present. The young men here on the stage and some of them out here in the audience are some of the best and the brightest that our country has to offer. In a little over a month, these 23 seniors, these incredible young men standing behind me, will graduate and commission as officers in the United States Navy and Marine Corps under your command, Mr. President. And they will do so with tremendous character and the core values of duty, honor, courage, and commitment. I know there have been a lot of great teams. You mentioned some of those earlier, come through here, collegiate, professional, world champions, national champions that have been honored here at the White House. But Mr. President, this is your team. This is America's team. And the CIC trophy is the most coveted and honorable trophy in all of college sports. And it's our objective to come back here and get to know you a little bit better over the course of your tenure. This time I'd like to bring up our two captains, Daba Fofana and Colin Ramos, to present you, Mr. President, with a couple of nice gifts.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Go Navy, beat everyone.
Wow, that's a beauty. That's fantastic. Let me do this. Come on up. See you coming over. Come on over, Coach. Thank you very, very much. And we're going to bring the team and a few of your special friends down to the Oval Office. And we're going to have some fun, so I'll see you down there. And I'll carry this with me and I'll pretend I'm a great football player. Okay? Thank you all very much.
President Trump at the White House presenting the Commander-in-Chief trophy to the Navy shipmen, the United States Naval Academy football team. In today's Business Matters, if you haven't finished your 2024 taxes, the clock is ticking. It's April 15th, otherwise known as Tax Day, the deadline to get federal income tax returns sent to the Internal Revenue Service. While a majority of U.S. taxpayers have already taken care of matters with the tax amendment, roughly 101 million have yet to do so. There are some exceptions Businesses and residents in 7 disaster-stricken states have been given extensions. Taxpayers are advised to file electronically if possible. The Taxpayer Advocate Service says that's usually safer and faster than dropping it in the mail. Canada is offering some relief from counter tariffs on U.S. imports. Canada's finance ministry says local auto manufacturers will be allowed to import a certain number of U.S. assembled free trade compliant vehicles, only if they continue to produce vehicles locally and complete planned investments. The finance ministry also announced 6 months of relief for some goods imported from the U.S. Now, this includes those used in Canadian manufacturing, food and beverage packaging as well, and others that support healthcare and national security objectives. A record number of iPhones landed in the U.S. from India last month as the threat of tariffs loomed. Custom data shows that Apple's main India supplier, Foxconn, exported about $1.3 billion worth of smartphones in March. That's the highest ever for a single month. Another supplier, Tata Electronics, exported about $600 million worth, all by air, into the United States. India is facing a 26% duty, which President Trump has since paused and added exemptions for smartphones. While Meta is entangled in a historic antitrust lawsuit with the FTC, Google is coming under fire in Japan. The Japan Fair Trade Commission is ordering Google to stop favoring Google Search in Android phones. NTD Sean Marshall has details.
Japanese regulators on Tuesday accused U.S. tech giant Google of violating anti-monopoly laws. The Japan Fair Trade Commission's cease and desist order says Google must stop the pre-installation of the Google search engine on Android smartphones. And in classic Japanese fashion, a cute cartoon-like infographic was released to explain the situation. It illustrates numerous ways in which the Japanese regulator claims Google dominates the different search features on Android phones, like how rival search providers are less likely to be implemented on Android phones and operating systems, and how most search functions lead to Google's own internet search service, which the regulator says effectively shuts out competition. A Google spokesperson told NTD in a statement, "We're disappointed by the JFTC's findings as our agreements with Japanese partners are pro-competitive and have undeniably boosted their ability to invest in product innovations which deliver more choice for consumers. We will review the order thoroughly to determine our next steps." Japanese regulators began their investigation into Google in 2023. They say they've consulted with overseas authorities dealing with similar cases. Similar anti-monopoly moves against Google have already taken place in the U.S. and Europe. In the U.S., a judge ruled last year that Google's ubiquitous search engine illegally exploited its dominance to squash competition. European regulators have also slammed what they see as Google's monopolistic dominance. Tuesday's move marks the first time the Japan Fair Trade Commission has taken such an action against a major global technology company. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
The CEO of Advanced Micro Devices said today they're ready to start chip production at a Taiwanese chip maker's plant in Arizona. The CEO, Lisa Su, said they will make more AI servers in the U.S. Speaking at a news conference in Taiwan, Su acknowledged the dynamic situation in overall supply chain, but she added that AMD is lucky to have broad and deep partnerships to help counter any issues.
When you think about the importance of the supply chain, we need to have a supply chain in all places. So certainly Taiwan is very important to us from a supply chain. And also in the United States, we just completed our acquisition of ZT Systems, which is a leading supply chain AI server capability in the United States. So yes, we are also expanding our U.S. capability.
AMD is one of the largest providers of personal computer chips and relies mostly on TSMC, the world's largest contract chip maker in Taiwan, to make its chips. President Trump said on Sunday that he would be announcing the tariff rate on imported semiconductors this week. He said there would be flexibility with some companies in the sector. And a small group of U.S. businesses are fighting back against the president's authority to impose tariffs. The Liberty Justice Center is representing 5 small businesses and filed a lawsuit in the U.S. Court of International Trade. It argues Trump's tariffs are illegal under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. The lawsuit states the law gives the president authority to impose emergency economic powers in response to a threat to national security or the economy. But the group believes that criteria has not been met. The complaint also alleges the law doesn't allow for the president to unilaterally impose tariffs. Apparently, pharmaceuticals are currently being looked at for potential tariffs. That's according to official filings on an investigation into the matter. Here's more.
Drug makers and chip firms may not escape US tariffs much longer. The two sectors are currently exempt, but Washington is now proceeding with probes into both, setting the stage for more actions on trade. That's according to Federal Register filings on Monday. They show that the probes began on April 1st under the so-called Section 232 provision. That gives the administration 270 days to wrap up an investigation. Speaking Monday, Trump himself indicated the likely outcome.
We don't make our own drugs, our own pharmaceuticals. We don't make our own drugs anymore. The drug companies are in Ireland and they're in lots of other places, China. And all I have to do is impose a tariff. The more, the faster they move in.
Trump has already used the 232 provision to look into imports of copper and lumber. During his first term, he used it as the basis for tariffs on steel and other goods then rolled out in his second term. Last week, he exempted smartphones and some other goods from steep extra levies. But he later said the exemption would be short-lived, just lasting while Washington conducted a probe. Trump also promised to announce chip tariffs this week. Drug makers have lobbied Washington to phase in any new duties, saying they need time to shift manufacturing. Big players in the sector have global production operations and could take years to move output to the US. Tuesday saw shares in Asian automakers surge after Trump hinted they could get some relief from 25% tariffs on the sector. He said that the industry needed time to adapt. Shares in Toyota, Mazda and other big names were up over 4% in afternoon trade.
Many may view Hollywood as the entertainment capital of the world, but on-location filming in Tinseltown and the surrounding areas has plunged. That's according to a new report from Film LA, which is in charge of film permits for Los Angeles and Los Angeles County. The report states filming in the greater LA area decreased 22% during the first quarter of this year when compared to the same period last year. The group says a decline was observed in all filming categories, including feature films, television, and commercials. But the decline wasn't due to January's devastating wildfires. The report found those had a minimal impact on production. California lawmakers have proposed expanding the tax credit program as a way to incentivize the production industry in the state. American Airlines will provide free high-speed in-flight internet services beginning in January 2026. The carrier announced a partnership with AT&T today. Free onboard internet access has become a key perk for airlines as they compete for passengers. 2 years ago, Delta Airlines began offering free internet to members of its frequent flyer program. Last year, United Airlines tapped Elon Musk's Starlink for in-flight internet services. American said complimentary internet will be available exclusively for its frequent flyers. The carrier estimated 90% of its fleet will be equipped to offer in-flight Wi-Fi services. Currently, the Texas-based airline's customers are required to pay for in-flight internet. American also offers a Wi-Fi subscription plan to its loyalty program members starting at $49.95 a month. Sam's Club is getting a huge makeover. The warehouse chain says all of its 600 existing stores will be remodeled. The details were announced during Walmart's 2025 investment community meeting. Walmart owns Sam's Club. The company says the renovated stores will include scan and go, as well as the ability to ship your purchases directly to your home. And that's not all. Sam's Club is planning to open 15 new clubs every year for the next decade. That's on top of the 30 new locations the retailer previously announced. The company says its goal is to double membership, sales, and profit over the next decade. Whether you had to pay Uncle Sam or got a return, you can treat yourself this tax day. Here's just a handful of restaurants and shops offering deals and giveaways. Kona Ice is offering free shaved ice to customers. But first, fill up on a free burger or fries from Shake Shack with a purchase of $10.40. Potbelly customers can snag a free sandwich from any purchase of a sandwich, and a Krispy Kreme customer who buys a dozen donuts will get a second dozen for just the sales tax. Okay, onto markets. Stocks ended slightly lower today as tariff-related uncertainty continued to weigh on markets. This is despite strong earnings from major banks like Bank of America and Citigroup, which lifted financial stocks. Consumer and healthcare shares, including Johnson & Johnson and Merck, declined. While first quarter earnings have been strong, strategists note that tariffs are dominating investor sentiment. And that's it on today's Business Matters. Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific.